School Committee is hereby called to order. Joining us tonight, we have the Boy Scouts of Troop 24, who are in the process of working their way toward a merit badge, the rank of Eagle Scout. The merit badge is entitled Citizenship in the Community. You need to have actually won the award to be able to pronounce it, apparently, and I haven't. So, the rights and the badge constitutes knowledge and awareness of the rights and responsibilities of a citizen of Attleboro, and one of the requirements of the troop is to observe a meeting of a governing body, and the Attleboro School Committee is honored to have them with us tonight and to have them lead us in the salute to the flag. And for that, I call upon J.T. Scott, who is the senior patrol leader of Troop 24. So, Mr. Scott, could you please come forward and lead the committee and our guests in the salute to the flag?
You are not in uniform. Put your hand over your heart. You are in uniform and salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. And I think, Mr. Scott, if you could actually just stay up with the committee, we're going to put you to work because we do have some special guests tonight, and Mr. Scott has just volunteered to welcome them into the committee. And so, Mr. Scott, if you could just step out in the hallway and ask the boys' gymnastics team to please join the committee. Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thanks.
This is Mr. Scott now going for the impromptu leadership badge.
He's doing a great job. On the fire.
Come on in, guys. Grab a seat. The first 5 of you in the room.
The rest, stand up. Are there a lot ongoing?
We got a big group here, so.
Yeah. That's okay. We got room.
That's good.
Yeah, go right.
Why not?
You're doing it.
Oh, good.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Great. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Okay, at this time I'd ask the boys gymnastics team captains to please introduce yourselves and please inform the community why you've been asked to appear before the school committee tonight.
You can say your name. I'm Avi Narenberg, and we just this season won the state championships.
I'm Joe Cody, and I'm a co-captain, and we won the state championship.
So we heard. Avi, do you perhaps just want to share with the committee a few comments on the season and how it culminated? Where was the state championship held, and was it a close match? Were you individually responsible for the whole thing?
Of course.
Okay.
Well, this is the first season since gymnastics was reinstated in the state, so we're lucky to even have it this year because it almost didn't happen. From the beginning, I had hoped for some sort of award or recognition at the end of the season. I didn't think that we were going to win states simply because we didn't have any club kids or kids who had practiced outside of school.
Mm-hmm.
But and coming into states, I still didn't believe that we would have the ability to win. But the announcements came on, and we won by 31/100ths of a point.
Is that, and I apologize,
Yeah.
but is that close? It sounds like
very
that's
close. It's very close. Yes.
Okay.
To give a sense of scale, it was
76.
176 to 100.
176.25 to 175.9.
Wow.
Yes.
So it was a lot of points involved.
So yes, it was very close, and it was definitely a team effort. Although I'd like to take all of the credit,
Sure.
I definitely couldn't have done it without the rest of the team.
Okay. Well, on behalf of the governing body of the Attleboro schools, we certainly want to offer our congratulations and our commendation to you and to the entire team and the coaching staff for representing Attleboro High School and the athletic program so well. Ms. Singer, I believe, has a certificate from the committee that perhaps the superintendent could join the captains in the presentation thereof. And if we had our reporter here, is he? Do we?
Yeah, he's in the back.
Okay, and he usually has his camera with him, so perhaps we could get a quick snapshot. Don't forget the trophy in the photo. Avi.
So the Attleboro School Committee extends sincere congratulations to the Attleboro High School
There you go.
Boys gymnastics team for their dedication to excellence in their achievement of winning the 2014 MIAA State Championship. The governing body of the Attleboro Schools offers its warmest commendations for the recognition that the boys gymnastics team has brought to the Attleboro High School and the athletic program. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice job.
On behalf of the boys team and myself, I just want to thank the school committee for honoring us, recognizing us, and above all, supporting the boys gymnastics program, and in addition to the administration of Attleboro High School. And I also want to just, even though he's not here, extend my thanks to Mark Hull, who, along with myself and some other athletic directors and coaches, we went to the MIAA headquarters last spring, and we stated our desire to keep the sport alive. And due to that, they did change their decision and reinstated gymnastics. And as Avi said, it was really an honor to be the first team to win a state meet since that was reinstated. Also, it was nice to win it at Braintree, where I coached for 20 years. So that was a nice thing. And I did have to reassure some of these boys when I said that we'd be getting a citation, that was not a bad thing. They were a little scared about that.
It depends on the type, but
Yes.
this one's a good thing to have. And how many student athletes will be returning next year?
All but two.
All but two. Great.
Only two seniors on this team. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
32 on the team also.
So we'll see you back here April 13th, 2015.
We certainly hope so.
Okay.
Back to back. That's
Great.
what we're looking for.
Great. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
Congratulations. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's awesome.
Did you get that letter?
Yeah, thank you.
Looks great. Who that was? That was But where was she? She should have been here. Don't you think?
Mr. Scott, if you could grab the cheerleaders for us, please.
Careful. No.
It's not literally.
Scout. Natalie, if you guys want, you could just, the captains and the coaches could just grab a seat and put the trophy right up there on the table. Everybody else, come on in. There's plenty of room. Thank you very much for joining us. And Coach Farr, you could introduce your team captains and share with us and the community why you're before the school committee tonight.
Sure. This is Amanda Blackington, Shannon Harris, Shannon Ryder, and Danielle Mezeray. And we are here tonight to thank the school committee for allowing us to go down to nationals and giving us the opportunity to win.
Well, congratulations. As Natalie said, the Attleboro High School cheerleaders did win the national championship 2 weeks ago. And the committee, certainly on behalf of the students and staff of the Attleboro school system, want to extend our congratulations and highest commendations to you for representing Attleboro High School, the athletic community, and really the community at large, as well as you have. And this is certainly a program with a very proud tradition, a tradition that I know Natalie has been a part of for a long time. And we just want to offer our sincerest best wishes to those of you who will be graduating from the program this year and those who will be returning to defend the national championship next year. So on behalf of the Attleboro School Committee and the Attleboro School System, we congratulate you and we wish you all the best with future success. And someone has a certificate. Mr. Larson has a certificate. And if you could join the superintendent, Mr. Larson, with the trophy, Mr. Foster is going to get a picture so we can remember this evening forever.
Thank you.
go there, so then Rick doesn't have to bend over. You can go over and read it from here. These the lovely ladies will be right next to you. Okay, girls.
Well, on behalf of the Attleboro School Committee, we'd like to extend our sincerest congratulations to the Attleboro High School cheerleaders for their dedication to the excellence and historic success of National Cheerleading Competition in Orlando, Florida. The governing body of the Attleboro School offers the warmest commendations for the national recognition that the cheerleading team has brought to Attleboro High School and the athletic program. Signed this day, David Murphy, Chairman.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Shea, if you could just stay there for 1 second. We have one more certificate Mr. Storrs is going to present. Coach Farrar will be transitioning out of the cheerleading program, and we certainly wanted to offer our best wishes to her and gratitude for all the success.
After 14 years, am I right? Yes. The Attleboro School Committee would hereby extends its sincerest appreciation to Natalie Farrar for her dedication to the student athletes of Attleboro High School, because of her commitment to the students of the Attleboro High School cheerleading program, through which she has brought national acclaim to Attleboro High School and allowed her students to experience growth, achievement, and success. The governing body of the Attleboro School conveys its profound gratitude. Signed, David Murphy, Chairman, awarded this 14th day of April 2014.
That's pretty nice.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great job.
Yes, trying out. Yeah, they're all their tryouts are coming up soon. Really?
Now go ahead and ask how many are leaving.
How many ladies are graduating this year?
8.
Okay. All right. Well, and how many are staying? The rest.
That would be 12.
Well, that's enough to repeat, I think.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Anyone else win anything lately? Okay. Okay, our next item on our agenda is a reminder and the promotion of a very special event that will be taking place in the Attleboro schools in the coming month. And to share some information about that, I'd ask Dr. McCarthy and Ms. DeAngelis to please join the committee. And I'm sorry, I know that there are some other staff members here as well, but perhaps Dr. McCarthy could.
Absolutely. Like you said, it is a very special event. We have 7 different staff members who have volunteered their time to create the event, talking through challenging times, helping children and youth cope. That 7 people that will be presenting, but there's 15 members of the support staff here in Attleboro that are coming out that night in order to meet families and give them a face and a name to someone that they can reach out to should they have a challenging time, and to know the level of expertise that we have within our district. So we have a very brief presentation for you tonight just to talk about what the event will be and hopefully to let people at home hear about the event so they'll be able to come out. We have Jessica Yucatonis, who is a school adjustment counselor, and she's going to be talking about the general overview of the project. Joanne DePalma, who's our behavior specialist, she's going to be talking about communication, and Dawn Blaze, who's going to be talking about next steps. And then Joan will finish it up.
Brian. So we're so excited about this opportunity to speak before you and also present to the community at large. So we just want to give you a little snapshot of what the May 1st night will look like for you, and welcome you to come and join us that night. So in response to trauma, because it's everywhere, we came together as a group and sort of decided to outline that first night and help parents respond with their kids to a traumatic event. So, you know, trying to outline for parents what common reactions are for their kiddos, what is it that they're looking for or not looking for. Try to help parents and educate them on, you know, what fears look like, what it is to be scared, what they can sort of empower themselves to help their own kiddos with at home. Trying to give them the sense of safety in their own homes. What can they do to build a secure environment for their kids? We do that in schools by, you know, wearing name tags and, you know, offering support and encouragement, but we want to be able to transfer that over to their own home environments and empower parents and caregivers to be able to do that. We want to educate our parents and caregivers on news. You know, we open up our laptops, we see everything that's horrific these days. You turn on the news, you know, what that is to a child and what the cognitive, you know, approach for that kiddo, what they can understand and what's too much. So giving parents the ability and caregivers the ability to take the time to listen to their kiddos, ask questions, open-ended, be able to play with them and respond in appropriate ways. You know, remind our community that they are the most important role model for their kiddo, that how they're dealing with this trauma, how their coping strategies really impact how their kids feel, how they feel secure. And really taking the time to listen and play and encourage the growth of their kid. And this particular group is just brought together so we can break this down into, you know, more information, and they can leave with different strategies, and they can come back to their home-based school provider, and we can help even more. So we're really excited.
And building on that, part of what we'd like to do is assist our parents and families and guardians to connect with the community pieces that we have in place. And there is a wealth of opportunity for that here in Attleboro. But part of the problem is not knowing it's there. So communicating what's out there, connecting people, having the faces to go to know who to talk to make that connection. One of our big pieces to that is designing a component of the Attleboro website, which will link directly to a website designed just to follow this and what we're doing over for May 1st, but also as we continue and hopefully continue in this process and build and add to it. So they'll have a constant link and constant information that's available to them based on what we're teaching and what we're doing and what their staff members are doing.
And so moving forward after May 1st, what we'd like to do is establish a good relationship with parents by having parent nights, maybe coinciding with the parent-teacher conferences and the open house, where we can have some informational get-togethers with parents regarding other issues that they may have, other challenging times, not just crisis, but if they're having issues and you know, struggles at home with parenting, with discipline, with you know, just you know, issues that just arise on a normal day with parents, and they just, you know, say to themselves, gee, I wish there was something, you know, that I could do, some place I could go for some information. And it also gives them the opportunity to see our faces and to know who we are and to know who to call, and to be on that, you know, first name basis with a parent, I think is very instrumental moving forward.
So we're really excited. We have a lot of supports in Attleboro, and the team that has volunteered to be part of this is just impressive. So I am hoping to go forward so we can do other parent workshops. And I think it's really important that the students and the parents know they can put a face to a name and know there's a lot of supports in school. And this really links us very well with the community. So the event is on May 1st at 6 to 7 at Brennan Middle School. Parents can RSVP to Julianne Daniels either through her email, jdaniels@attleboroschools.com, or they can call the main number of the school and look for extension 1255 to RSVP. So we're looking for a great turnout from parents to come.
You want to talk a little bit about how the response has been so far? My understanding is it's been encouraging.
It's been encouraging verbally. We haven't gotten a lot of RSVPs, and it would really help if we had the RSVPs to know who's coming.
Yep.
A lot of the community has been responsive in that they're interested in coming. This is something parents have asked for, so it's in a direct response to something that's been asked for. Our support staff has been just so energized by the creation of this event, and so to have that's almost our entire support staff in terms of counseling support staff coming out that night to meet parents. So on both ends, it's been really supportive. We've also had a few people from the community at large that don't have children but have heard about it on through your meetings that have RSVP'd to come. So.
Good. I think just a couple of thoughts quickly. I think that these types of programs are not necessarily the ones that members of the community think of when they think of the public school system. I think most people, when they think of the public school system, we think of the chalkboard, pencils, pens, scissors, and the 6-hour, 30-minute day. And I think that what this program speaks to is the need for the public school system to adapt to the new expectations of the 21st century and the responsibilities that befall a school system in any community, but particularly a city like Attleboro. And so I just want to express my appreciation for your recognition of that. And I would say, as I have heard from just Ms. DeAngelis and Dr. McCarthy about the level of enthusiasm that the staff has responded to this challenge with. And I hope that there's a great turnout, and I hope that it's a great conversation. If the turnout the first time this type of program is run is not as high as we might like it, I would not in any way infer from that that this program is somehow not needed or not any less important than it would be if you had a standing room only crowd. I think that these are the types of programs that need to grow, and as we build awareness for what the school system offers, that's when the sort of participation will rise consistent with that. And so I'd say, continue promoting it. Let's get as many people there as possible. But on May 2nd, let's turn our attention to the next program, regardless of whether or not there's 50 people there or 3. Because I think the need is not going to go away. We know that for sure. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Anything else to add?
No.
Okay, so May 1st, 6 o'clock, Brennan Middle School, centrally located building, and hopefully we'll have a good turnout from the entire community.
And we have childcare.
And childcare is available. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to our spotlight event agenda item, our student representative, Mr. Lancaster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've got a trifecta of events for you tonight, 2 of which are on the 16th, which is this Wednesday. The first one is the Attleboro High School Blood Drive, which will take place in the large gym. It is just as it sounds, a Red Cross blood drive, which is going to give the opportunity for students and teachers to give blood if they are able. I know in the past there's been some conflicts with athletes and things like that giving blood, so athletes generally aren't allowed to give blood unless they're given the okay by their coach. Also, it's an 18 plus, so mostly going to be seniors, and then maybe I guess a couple of maybe juniors who are 18 will be allowed to give blood. It starts at 8 a.m. and will run until 12:30, 1 o'clock in the large gym again. And that's hosted by the Attleboro High School Student Council, and that's an event that we host annually. We're pretty proud of. So that's Wednesday, April 16th. The second one is also Wednesday, April 16th, except at 6 to 8 p.m., which is a trimester 3 open house. Actually, with this one, we will be reverting back to the traditional parent-teacher conference format after some feedback from last events. This basically, as it sounds, just an opportunity for parents to come in, sit down with their child's teachers, and see what lives and breathes inside of our classrooms. Parents also must make an appointment if they wish to meet with their child's teacher. And then there's more information on the most recent blue email sent out by Mr. Rooney, I think this past week. So that's, Wednesday night, April 16th from 6 to 8 p.m. And the last event that I've got for you is a little bit in advance, is the 3rd annual alumni gathering located at Hyman Fine Elementary School. Is that a correction on that? Okay, so I think it's actually at the Attleboro Arts Museum. I think I may have made a mistake on the PowerPoint. That's my fault. Which is 86 Park Street. That's 7 to 9 p.m. on the 21st. So that's a little bit in advance, but just something we like to get the word out for. That's definitely not at the Hyman Fine Elementary School. So that's that one. It's actually our 3rd annual one, so we're hoping to see a good turnout at that on the 21st.
And I believe there will be representatives from the Alumni Association joining us at our May 5th meeting.
Okay,
to
great.
help promote that event as well. So, and perhaps some of them are Hyman Fine alumni as well. Who knows?
You never know.
You never know. I agree. Thank you, Mr. Lancaster. Moving on to our consent agenda.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Could
Mr.
we just
Chair.
get an update on the baseball game today against Mansfield?
If we have an update,
Mr.
we're always
I'd be
looking
happy to give the committee an update. We won 4-1 tonight against Mansfield, which puts us at now 5-0 in the hockey.
Well done, Mr. Lancaster.
Well done.
Congratulations.
If you win a state or national championship, we can have you in.
I hope so.
Very similar to the girls.
I know. That'd be great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving on to our consent agenda. A motion to accept a donation in the amount of $500 from the Rebecca Lynn Whitefield Scholarship Fund to the class of 2014 senior dues line at Attleboro High School.
So moved.
Discussion. I just said briefly that the Whitefield Foundation's annual gala was held this past weekend. It was a very strong and enthusiastic turnout from the community. And as in part of the announcements that were made that night, it was mentioned that Attleboro High School Dean Martin Ty will be running the Boston Marathon next week and to benefit the Whitefield Foundation. So anyone looking to make some last-minute marathon donations, you should feel free to contact the high school and look for Dean Ty, who will again be running on behalf of the Whitefield Foundation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. A motion to accept a donation in the amount of $3,900 from Bill Larson to Attleboro High School to be used for whatever is best for Attleboro High School. Discussion.
Thank you, Bill.
Yes, the Whitefield Foundation, I obviously have a family connection to. This Larson fellow also seems quite generous, and we certainly extend our appreciation to him. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. A motion to accept a donation in the amount of $3,621.02 from Life Touch to the class of 2014.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Class of 2014 making out quite well tonight. And Ms. Lancaster, we hope you enjoy the proceeds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Moving on to our open forum, which is an opportunity for members of the community to address the committee, and an opportunity for me to read the following. This is a time when members of the public may address the school committee. Open forum is not a time for committee members to engage in dialogue with members of the public. Guidelines for open forum are available to you. We value what you have to say, but cannot respond without background information. Does anyone wish to address the school committee as part of open forum? And that closes open forum, and we move on to our new business agenda items, starting off with our personnel report, our Assistant Superintendent of Schools, David Sawyer. Good evening, Mr. Sawyer.
Good evening. I have a very brief report for you this evening. 2 items. One, we have a retirement. Marilyn Mooney, a kindergarten teacher at Thatcher. And we have a resignation, Allison Usman, a SPED inclusion teacher at Coelho.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. And if you could remain with the committee, and we'll ask our middle school administrative team to join us for the presentations of the school improvement plans. Good evening. Thank you for being with us tonight. I don't know if Mr. Sheehan or Mr. Sawyer who's going to begin the presentation, but Mr. Sheehan, perhaps you could introduce needs no introduction.
Tonight we have obviously the middle school administration with Karen Saltzman, Carol Coffin, and Mr. Bowles, Andrew Bowles. I have thoroughly gone through the school improvement plans, and I shared with them last week what I thought was very unique is that how Karen, in fact, from Brennan School, put the hothouse over her sign in the beginning of it to hot grow her perennials before anybody else, and so she's got her daffodils and hyacinths and tulips, and it looks like jonquils all ready to go, and I think that was really nice for you to do that, that caught my eye right from the beginning. So I know that they worked very, very hard, and a person who is not here who works equally hard with them is Michelle Roy, our data person, who plays an integral role with regard to the production of these particular plans. So I'll hand it over to Mr. Sawyer, who also helps put all this material together.
Thank you, Mr. Shin. A school improvement plan is not an attempt to capture all the good work that goes on in a school. No such document, I think, could ever capture all the initiatives that are happening in any given school. It's an attempt to highlight the key initiatives that the school is engaging in over the next year in an attempt to better the outcomes at that school. The improvement plans are broken down into 4 areas: curriculum and planning, teaching all students, community and family engagement, and professional culture. These 4 areas happen to be the 4 standards by which all educators in the district are evaluated. And that goes from classroom teachers to support personnel, administrators, and even the superintendent. So we use those 4 areas as a way of aligning all of our work in support of these plans to improve outcomes. So with that brief introduction, I would like to turn it over to the principals, who will highlight a couple of the key areas in each of their plans.
I'll start.
Yeah.
Thank you for this opportunity to come to share our school improvement plans with you tonight. From Brennan Middle School, this year, the way the timeline went, we were afforded extra time to really delve deeper into our data, and that's many thanks to Michelle Roy and our literacy and math coaches, Julie James and Lynn Marset. And it gave us time, a longer time frame, to really be working all year long as we're going through this year and our school improvement plan to look at what we need to do for next year. We worked longer with our instructional leadership team and involving a lot more of the stakeholders in the school, and also with our school council and involving the stakeholders and parents and community members there. The folks, particularly the work of the math coaches and the literacy coaches in our buildings, helping our staff to really make informed decisions, to really keep our instructional focus based on the needs of the students. And presently, I'm going to just focus on one piece, particularly in the area of ELA, where we're seeing a crossover of the literacy standards into all of the core content areas. And there are literacy standards embedded within those curriculum frameworks, so it's very appropriate that we are starting to see these changes within our classrooms. We're starting to see students using close reading strategies and their annotating abilities as they're starting to answer and support, provide evidence as to why they would form an opinion, and then finally argue as to, and make like an inferential remark about something that they were asked about. So they're taking information from a couple of sources and really providing those pieces of evidence that support their arguments. And also in 7th and 8th grade, we are seeing our ELA teachers of teaching, continuing to teach the laying the foundation, pre-AP strategies, which are hopefully embedding those within all of our subject areas as well, and then sending students up to the high school that are really prepared for the rigor of the coursework at Attleboro High School. Another area that I'd like to focus on is our family and community engagement. This is an area that we do struggle. I had a conversation with Mrs. Scales earlier in the year about how it's difficult to get folks out after a hard day of work to come in and want to engage in the PTO meetings. But parents are very receptive to coming into school when we have programs. And this past year we had a winter festival where we were able to have the parents come in and join in their students, their children, as they engage in activities that their children had already engaged in school. So they, and the teachers were there to present and to be able to talk about the curriculum as well, but the parents actually were taught to do the activity by their children. So it was, I think, very successful. We had 240 students come. They each got homework passes, and 400 parents and siblings that joined us, and the PTO did provide us with hot chocolate and cookies. The last place that I'm going to focus on would be the professional culture. We keep working on that throughout our school system, and particularly I take the opportunity of being able to work during our staff meetings to provide that just-in-time type of workshops that are applicable for where Brennan Middle School is. And it gives the staff a chance to really be reflective about their practice and to be collegial with their peers. Some of the topics that they've worked on this year would be building resiliency in our students, which is something that it's ongoing discussions that we have, how to implement differentiated instructional strategies, and ways that we can enhance our anti-bullying curriculums.
At Wamsutta, we took this year as an opportunity to really take a look at the successes we had in the 2 years that we were a commendation school. So we took a look at the strategies that we did those 2 years, which ones worked well, and which ones we thought we needed to push forward into our next school improvement plan. However, we did find that in looking at our data and in looking at the children and what was happening in the classrooms this year, we recognized the students are changing. and they're changing because of technology. So one of our focus areas this year is technology. We want to become a technology literate learning environment. Now, this is our professional practice goal, which is actually the last goal in our plan. However, it does provide the foundation for the other goals as well. As professionals, we feel that we need to have more knowledge and have more experience in technology ourselves. We've done a great job in getting some equipment this year. Of course, we have a long ways to go, but we have been able to get donations, and we've been working to really bring technology into the classroom because it is for students, it's for interventions, it's for differentiation. There's so many different ways that technology can enhance learning. We have 7th grade that can dissect a frog virtually. It's much nicer when you can do it on a computer than on a table. We have students who sit in a math class, and you'll see 2 students with Chromebooks over in the corner, and they're working on something that's separate from the rest of the class. You'll see 2 students in another class that need extra vocabulary work, and they're able to do that on some laptops. I was in a professional development last week on Wednesday. A teacher who'd been to a national conference had taken pictures with her cell phone. She was able to put it under the document camera and instruct the rest of the teachers in how to use some technology and some of the new things that are coming. So these are things that we as educators need to learn to become comfortable with using, and we need to help our students know how to use them in the classroom. So with that goal, we want to build our own capacity in the area of technology. We want to be able to use it better with our parents, with our guardians. Now that we're using the parent portal, we see that as a tremendous vehicle for communication and for keeping parents informed. Also, the students have access to it. That portal provides them with real-time homework, real-time assignments. If they're absent, they can access it when they're absent. So there are a lot of advantages to becoming a technology learning environment. And that is what we're trying to build at Wamsutta. As I said, it's really the foundation, because when it comes to Standard 1 with curriculum assessment, and it comes to teaching all students, we're talking about data collection, we're talking about trends and patterns, and as a result of that, what will we do with all of that information? And we need technology to help us do that. So we are looking to build the capacity of our staff and build the capacity of our children. And this goes hand in hand with our second area that we are very, very focused on. Again, this year, in looking at our students and looking at our past results, we've realized that one of the things we need to do better is to build independent learners in our children. You know, we took a look at the results we were getting, and we said, now, can our children be as successful without the supports of the classroom as they can be with the supports we provide in the classroom? And how do we make that progression? So when students come in as 5th graders, what supports are we providing for 5th graders? And then again in 6th and 7th, so that by the end of 8th grade, these are independent learners. They know where and how to find information. They're problem solvers, and they're able to be more successful when they reach the high school. So those are the 2 key areas that have changed significantly in our plan from other years, but we're very excited about pushing those forward.
For Coelho Middle School, we really looked back at last year and really assessed what worked well to make Coelho attain a level 1 status, which hadn't been done in previous years. And the work was really done, and I want to commend the staff, the teachers, the ILAs, the coaches, and everybody who took part in that progress of making Coelho achieve a success that it should have. We looked at the plan that we had in place last year, and we assessed what strategies we felt worked and what strategies need to be reconfigured to attain the next level of success that we expect of our students. And looking at that, we realized that we have to dive deeper into that level of understanding of what the frameworks are calling for the expectation of our students and us as staff, how to deliver that effectively. So the primary focus of this year, 2 highlights I'm going to give you tonight is, one is the curriculum planning instruction and how that dovetails into professional collaboration. We want to provide opportunities at Coelho Middle School for the teachers and the coaches to sit down and discuss these frameworks and how it pertains to the students as a whole and to the individual students, whether they're an ELL student, a student with special education, or a regular education student, or even our honor students. How do the frameworks challenge our students, but also give them the supports they need to be successful? One of those ways we feel that we can attain this success is giving teachers the opportunity to sit down and really collaborate. Collaborate amongst themselves, among different disciplines, and also giving them chances to sit down with the coaches so they can see what effective teaching strategies look like, and those coaches can model that for the teachers in the classroom. That in itself creates a professional school culture that really breeds success, and that's the way we want to foster this love of education for our faculty and for our students. Some of our students, my students, are behind us right now as we speak, and I can say I'm proud of you guys for being here tonight. Congratulations. But they can say to you what the expectations are for themselves in the classroom. And that really is the testament of the teachers' will and effort to really own their teaching and own their strategies that they put in place. The next part of the plan that we want to highlight is really parent and family engagement in two aspects. This is our second year of using the Aspen portal for parents. The feedback that we've gotten from parents and students who are using it on a regular basis is phenomenal. It gives them instant access to the students' grades, like Mrs. Coffin said, missing work, upcoming events that they might have, and it really eliminates the calls to the teachers about what did my child miss, when the calls now are, how can I help my child at home? What sort of remediations do you think we need? What's a plan that we can put in place? So it eliminates these sort of 1-minute phone calls or the 1-minute conversations and has a more in-depth role of that. We're also proud to say, with the help of the high school, we were able to schedule 100% of our 8th graders ahead of time for their choices for coursework for the high school, which once again cuts down on the time that they need to sit down and map out the schedule, send them to the high school. The request was sent up. Parents got to have those conversations at home with their children about what kind of courses would they like to take, and now the recommendation portion for those courses are going to take place. The final piece of the parent engagement, which I've been fortunate enough to work with Mr. Stores on, is creating technology at the middle school level. This is going to be our 3rd year of our golf tournament that we have in sort of raising money and awareness about technology in Attleboro Public Schools, and really putting forth a community event to raise that awareness and bring students into the 21st century skills. It goes also into what Ms. Coffin and Ms. Olson said about supporting kids in technology, making them independent learners, and what education really looks like now for our students. So I am very proud of the work that the Coelho PTO and Mr. Stores and his wife creating these events have led to us, but there's a lot of room to grow, and we're asking the support of the community. But these type of events and these type of meetings where parents and community members can come involved in the school just grows to the success of the students. So those are some of the highlights that we're doing at Coelho Middle School. So I want to thank you for this opportunity also.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. Are there questions or comments from the committee? Mr. Tyler?
Yes, actually, thank you very much for the presentation. And the Aspen portal is actually great for parents. I don't think the kids enjoy it as much as we do, because that I left the homework at, in school doesn't work as good anymore. But I think my question would be to all of you, but I think Ms. Coffin touched on it the most. And we're talking about technology, and obviously middle school is the bridge between, this is what gets them prepared for high school. And I don't think the whole public knows in general when we're talking about technology, even though I know Mr. Sheen has a presentation forthcoming tonight on that. But can you explain what is the infrastructure in the middle schools? What do you have for technology now? I mean, does every kid have a computer? I think the public really needs to know this. I mean, we need to hear it from you guys. What exactly do they have for tools right now?
No, every student does not have a computer, but we wish they did. We were fortunate that our PTO purchased access points to put in our school, which enabled Wamsutta to become wireless. Because of that, our teachers went to Donors Choose, which is an organization that has matching funding or it has support funding, and they have requested different pieces of technology, document cameras, projectors, computers, Chromebooks, and teachers have been able to secure some of that hardware. And we've purchased some of the hardware through our district or through our school budget, but we don't have a very large budget to do that. So in that way, if it was not for our access points, we would not be able to push forward with our goal of becoming technologically literate throughout the school. We did receive upgrades to our computer labs this year, so all of the schools have 2 new computer labs, which all students access. Beyond that, there's a computer in every classroom, but many of them are very old and outdated and frankly are past their time. And now with the change from XP and no longer having that support, that could change some of that as well. So there is a tremendous need for all of the schools, especially the middles, to be able to move forward. And even though we don't have that computer for every student, we need to, as educators, prepare ourselves for that time and to secure whatever we can in technology to make that happen. Because our children are coming in with different skills now. They come in now and they are used to having instantaneous information coming into them. So we can't sit in the classroom with a book anymore and think that that's going to hold their attention. We have to take a look at how we're going to adjust our teaching. We still use the same strategies that are significant and effective. However, there are some tools that these students are used to. The high school had used clickers before, and they were fortunate enough to let us borrow them. Now we had a teacher go on to Donors Choose and get a set of clickers for his classroom, so each student will have something in hand that the teacher can put up on the screen. The student can click in an answer, and the teacher can come out with data on that on the spot. But these are the kinds of things that really education is moving toward, that we don't have the hardware for. So we're doing the best we can with what we have, finding it where we can, receiving donations. We've really got to focus on having the staff ready.
And I appreciate that. And I just don't want anybody in the public to think that, you know, if they haven't been into the classrooms, that every child is sitting in front of an old computer that is not. In fact, we have classrooms, we have computer centers where the children go for a period or two to take the computer classes, but they don't have an actual computer in front of them. Matter of fact, there's actually grade levels where the teachers actually share computers from room to room. So, I mean, I think it would be safe to say, luckily, that technology has gotten cheaper and more affordable where the kids, most children have it. But if we have any number of students, I don't care if it's 1 or 10, that don't have that technology at home, it's really going to be a learning curve when we get to the high school level or beyond. If it's not, and that to me is just very scary, and I know what it can offer the teachers, you know, in their structural time to bring things forward. So I hope we can all work on this for you. And
just to give you an idea, I am part of a group for the last 2 years, an online group that focuses on game-based learning and focuses on flipping classrooms, on blended classrooms, and all of this requires technology that there are districts that are so far ahead of where we are because these students have this equipment now and are actively using it. You know, there are so many different types of learning, taking the strategies we use now, but almost in flipping, the student would learn what might have been more of a lecture type. They would learn it through the computer at home, and they'd come in the next day and they'd be able to do hands-on, some research-based. They'd have that knowledge. They'd come in and they'd actually start working with a group, creating something, doing a project, inquiry work. So, you know, there are a lot of opportunities that we're afforded that are available out there, and other districts are using now that we aren't capable of doing yet.
Thank you.
And I think one of the things that we have to add to that is technology is ever changing. And I'm, as a parent of 2, I'm guilty of this. We go out to dinner. The first thing my daughter, who's 7, grabs for is my iPhone. My son's 2, and he knows how to turn it on. Kids are very well equipped to deal with technology. We have to stay with those trends to keep up with our students. what we find is technology is a great avenue to keep students engaged, and if it's done effectively, will be a lifelong process for them. And every year we go by and we don't give these students access to this type of technology. Our teachers are doing a very wonderful job because they're so dedicated of putting things together by themselves. But we want our students to be ready for that next level of learning if they go into the college level or business or military. And technology is a requirement now. And we want to make sure that they're prepared for that. So I think it not only starts at the middle school level, it starts really at the elementary school level, where we can get technology in their hands for instructional purposes. It's not to play games or to have fun, but it's for instructional purposes. And that's the thing what we always are stressing to when we get to talk to community members about technology in the classroom and what it looks like. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is providing the teachers with the professional development to allow us to say, what does technology in the classroom look like, sound like, and how is it modeled so kids and students do have access in appropriate manners.
Mr. Storrs.
I wanted to say, as far as Brennan, one of the things that really stood out to me is how you focused actually on social studies and science as one of your focuses. Too often, in my opinion, the social studies and science falls to the wayside because the state cares about math and ELA. And as far as WAMSUTA, the technology piece in yours was very evident. And Andy, I'm glad that I'm hearing about the technology. And we, as you said, we've been working for 2 years. And this will be our third year. We have almost $10,000 that we need to use, and it sounds like it's been done. WAMSUTA has turned their school into a Wi-Fi, so everybody has access somewhere. Because I know the moment we go into Coelho, my bars go to zero. So
well, we have Wi-Fi. We just don't, the way the structure of the building, it's a building on top of a building when it was developed. So essentially, it's concrete on top of concrete. So the signal strength of phones will not get in and out. But we do have a Wi-Fi system. It's modular, so in every section of the building you have a Wi-Fi access point. You get on that one, but if you're going to get a phone call on them, Mr. Storrs, unfortunately you will not receive it. I'm sorry.
But so it
The
sounds like it's
bandwidth,
possible.
the bandwidth is a challenge because we do have, a lot. Once we had the access points, and people, it was like opening a door, and the excitement of teachers to be able to try and acquire this technology so that they could bring it into the classroom. We have our challenges when it comes to, the band going in and out and everything, but you could get access from any point in the building.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Mrs. Scales?
Just one, Mr. Bowles, I just want to commend you for trying to get more special education students away from taking the portfolio exam and challenging them, and to hopefully one day receive a diploma. Because we all know that having that piece of paper in hand really means a lot. So, I would hope that the other two schools are also doing the same thing.
Thank you.
Mr. Shin?
I'd like to just state for the committee's edification is that these school improvement plans obviously were not top down. They're not two administrators sitting behind closed doors writing up plans. They're paraprofessionals, they're teachers, the administration, parents, community members. They're all sitting there hours upon hours looking at old data, looking at new data, looking at where the school is, and looking where they want to bring the school and how they want to bring it forward. Second to that piece is that you can't underestimate and understate the disaggregation of data, whether it's student data or curriculum data, to make research-based decisions by which to bring their schools forward, which they have done. And the last piece is when you look at the curriculum planning and assessment, and you look at teaching all student agenda and parent and family involvement, as well as development of a professional collaborative culture, many members of this school committee and all of the members of the school committee, in fact, have read extensively what was produced last year at this time, and that was the Attleboro Comprehensive Assessment. And in that mentions all of those areas and others, including the technology piece. So it's about what does the data show, what are the people saying, what is the position in the school department right now, and where have they taken it from their buildings moving forward. And I want to commend them. I think they've done an excellent job in the production of these school improvement plans.
That's certainly true, and we certainly look forward to the school improvement plans that will be coming forward from the high school and the elementary school. I think that each year when the committee is presented with this information, it is really some of the most, some of the densest material that we receive throughout the course of the year. And I'm sure at times it can be frustrating to be communicating to a civilian board that is not as ingrained in the work that you and your staffs are, or the community representatives that are helping you to put these plans together. So we certainly appreciate the clarity with which the plans are articulated. Just one quick final comment. I think that each of you have articulated well the ways in which your building communities are looking to move forward in each of those 4 areas that the state has designated as the ways in which we'll essentially evaluate a school system and anyone who works for a school system. And I think that the plans make sense, the programs are important, and the priorities such as the utilization of technology are all critical components. But what occurred to me as each of you, as you went through your various plans, is that without talented individuals in these positions who are well trained and dedicated to the district, the plans can be as well articulated and as well sort of generated from a thought standpoint as any plans in public education. But without the people who, like yourselves and the people who work for you, who actually need to execute these plans, the district really won't be able to move forward. And I think that is important, particularly when we talk about the technology realm, because it is possible to move forward from a technology standpoint and not move the district forward. And I think it's important for us all to remember that we're trying to move the district forward by making progress on the technology front, not the other way around. And the example we always use is Mr. Reed presented as part of the committees that we're hearing reports on tonight. There was a day last year when he said that on that given day he could have taught his class more effectively had he taught it at a Dunkin' Donuts, because Dunkin' Donuts had fast, reliable wireless. And the point that I made to him that night, and I will make to him every other time this example comes up, is that if Mr. Reed was not a talented teacher, it wouldn't matter whether he was teaching at Dunkin' Donuts, at the high school, or in a back alley somewhere. That has to be the critical variable, that the instruction has to be at the highest level, and then we use the technology to try to expand that and try to make it that much better. But without that first variable, we can have the greatest internet in the history of the internet, and it's not going to get us where we want to be. So thank you very much for coming in. We look forward to seeing you soon. We're going to transition now to the next item on our new business agenda, which is an overview of a very timely topic, and one that we've just touched upon tonight, which is the technology education status report in the district. And the committee has been informed on multiple occasions that there are 2 ongoing working groups addressing the district's technology needs. This report, frankly, is a bit of a prelude to a more substantive and detailed report that I would anticipate the administration bringing to the committee's attention probably in the late summer, early fall, about the sort of big steps forward that we're anticipating with regard to the district's technology utilization. So with that, Mr. Sheehan, I would turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Chairman Murphy. It's really a pleasure for me to be able to share with all the committee members, which some of this was done earlier in the year, and now we have new members on the school committee. So it's a good opportunity to bring everyone up to speed with regard to the status of the technology regarding the Attleboro Public Schools. And it's a nice segue from what the middle school administration had said with regard to technology as well. So this really started in July, and so when we looked at July and August of this school year, 2013, we reviewed previously approved technology plans from 2004 to 2015. We also started to develop plans to address the January 2013 Attleboro School Committee comprehensive assessment regarding the one aspect, or one of the major aspects there, and which was technology. And we also started to begin the development of authentic representative technology committees, meaning this, that they were not going to be top down, that they were going to elicit support from the teaching ranks and other people within the school district, so that there would be a buy-in right from the start. There was truly a representative body when we started looking at this, and we developed 3 actual committees. But the representative bodies were not going to be 8 central office administrators. They were going to be a collective group of people representing 9 schools in the district and all aspects of the entire school district regarding technology. When we went into September through December, we first created the Technology Advisory Council, then a Technology Operation and Instructional Committees. And as you see in the Technology Council, 2013, we have a number of different people on there, including myself and Mr. Sawyer and Ms. McCarthy and so forth. But even more importantly, they're representatives that would oversee the technology piece with regard to the entire district. And it's truly a representative body. We also decided that it wasn't enough just to have that oversight committee, that we really needed to have 2 different committees after that. One committee would be the Technology Operational Committee, and the next one would end up being the Instructional Committee. So as you see, there are a number of people also that are in the Operationals Committee, and we'll talk about that in a little bit in a while. And we have some chair people associated with that. The other committee is actually headed by Mr. Sawyer and Kim Jansen, and that's the Technology Instructional Committee. And those are the individuals that represent all of the facets of our school system in every one of the buildings, as well as central office. So what really resonated with the middle school principals' school improvement plans was, in fact, that you saw people say that despite having the shortcomings of the technology or the bandwidth or some of the infrastructure pieces, we were not standing still. The bottom line for the instructional committee, despite where we are, Mr. Sawyer, through professional development and with this committee, enhances their ability to move to the next phase automatically. How will teachers utilize technology by which to enhance instruction? And so whether this truly is done this coming July or this coming school year, we didn't skip a beat. We have been doing this since October, training our teachers, providing the professional development for the day that, in fact, every child has a computer sitting in front of them, and that we are going to enhance instruction through the use of technology. And we are not going to fall behind our brothers and sisters in other communities. So we know where we are, we know where we want to go, but we can't waste any time with regard to professional development, with regard to where our operations committee, in fact, is at the time.
Mr. Sheen, can I just ask a quick
You
question
may.
about that point? I mean, I think that, you've talked sort of about how right from the beginning of the school year, these 2 committees have been pushing forward and trying to help bring about what essentially is a culture shift in the district, to see technology as something that needs to be embraced and utilized to a greater extent. And we have a couple of big hurdles that we need to get over with Ruth. I know that you're going to talk a little bit about that toward the end of this presentation, about making sure that we have the infrastructure in place so that there's fast and reliable wireless everywhere within the Attleboro schools. But isn't it also true that the reason that we need to push forward so aggressively is that even when we get over those hurdles, this isn't going to be the type of initiative in which we're going to wake up one day and we're going to have reached the promised land when it comes to technology? Because at some point, what we're talking about is so ubiquitous that this is just sort of going to be a way of life, and it will just sort of become ingrained in the culture. Because we're not talking about that moment when everybody's got a reliable wireless signal. We're talking about a much more gradual progression where this just becomes secondhand, just like writing in cursive at one point was. Is that a fair?
Yeah, Mr. Murphy, you're right on the money. What I thought was impressive with the presentations tonight, and this was not rehearsed going into this, but for Mr. Bowles to share that how it enhances the classroom on a day-to-day basis and where we're going from that piece. And Carol Coffin saying, okay, we have the wireless now, but there are so many things that we can do with regard to the classroom structure, that things can go on in the classroom. And as I've shared with many of you before, in the next 5 years or 5 years from now, the general public will not recognize what classrooms are in public education, because technology will in fact revolutionize how children are taught, how they're going to share. That education will not take place in a 6.5 to 7 hour school day. Education will be 24/7. You'll be working with groups. You won't have to get together at the library. You can stay in your own homes, in your own living rooms, and you'll be being connected with your teachers from there and your fellow students. So all of those pieces that technology allows us to do. As we've shared as a group, many of us, that we really need to say, at the end of the day, what are those skills that we want our graduating seniors to have, Max? That what are those skills that give them not a competitive edge, but keeps them level with everybody else? And as Mr. Bull said, it's not about just college. It is about business. It is about the military. So technology is here. And I have a 20-month-old granddaughter. She certainly can turn on my phone. She can play with my iPad. She knows how to produce videos by herself. The technology, they just grow up with it. We adjust to them now. We've got to, in fact, for our professional development, is to almost to get out of their way, guide the practice. The information highway is so vast that the way we teach and the way they absorb information, the way they share information is going to be incredible. This is the most exciting time that I've ever seen in education. And in 5 years, it's going to be incredible. So this is where it is. And what's impressive in this school district, you saw, and if I can go to the other slide, I think it's the next slide. When you see the amount of people in the instructional piece with the oversight committee as well as the instructional committee, the amount of teachers and administrators who in fact have dedicated themselves in this district to this one initiative, that they know where this will take us educationally. They know how much technology is going to enhance teaching and learning, and how far our kids can go. Unfortunately, Max will be walking across the stage in a couple of months. He'll have to learn some of these things on his own. Other kids will be ahead of him where he was as a senior in the next couple of years. But that's our commitment to them as we started. That's what the comprehensive assessment said we need to do for our kids as well.
He has younger brothers, so perhaps they can teach him.
Well, yeah, maybe you can teach him a few things. Maybe you can teach him how to hit. The interesting piece on this slide, once again, is that you have the oversight committee and the council. You have the operational committees going on. These committees meet a couple of times a month, 3 and 4 hours at a time, on their own time. It's not during the school day. It's after school hours. And the amount of work that they're producing is absolutely incredible. But we're not doing this in isolation. Both Chairman Tyler and ex-Chairman Tyler and Chairman Murphy and the mayor have been on the ground floor and know right from day one, from July 1st, where exactly we were going in the district. So this has not been a surprise for City Hall. It's not a surprise for the mayor. They have been on the ground floor when we've been doing this work right from the start, and we'll get into some of that in a little bit. But one of the things that I would like Mr. Sawyer to share with you was something that, in fact, the mayor was involved in where we are in some of the schools currently.
So the mayor asked the school department to come up with a plan for what exactly would we call, using his term, a minimum standard for technology in our schools. Obviously, there's always more that we want, but what would be the minimum that we would want to see in every school so that we could do the things that we would like to be doing? And we put together this document that is presented in this slide to capture that. One is that we needed a combination of labs and mobile labs. We actually imagine a day in which labs won't be necessary, that people will be bringing their own devices, because I read recently that the number of devices, the average number of devices that people will be carrying will, in the next, I think it was 5 years, will jump to three per person. So, and you see it now. A lot of times when you go to a meeting, people who sit down and they have their tablet and their cell phone, right? So that's two, internet devices. They're saying that it won't be long before that average jumps up to 3.
Okay, but isn't that a step in the wrong direction? Shouldn't we be trying to condense? I mean, if there's a technology business person, perhaps some of the scouts are looking for a business plan that they can cultivate in the years ahead. But if that's the case, then someone's going to combine those 3 into one at some point.
Well, I mean, they've tried, right? I mean, they make a phablet now, and
yeah, I would think that that's the direction.
Yeah, but for some people, I think they'd rather have the 2, because in some moments you don't want to hold this big thing up to your head while you're talking, and in other moments you don't want to try to type on something the size of your phone. So different devices, because as the price of the technology goes down, it's imaginable that you'll have different devices. And these third devices are the things like the watch you see the commercials for, which I don't quite understand what the purpose of that thing is, but they make that. But the Google Glasses are another idea of a third device. Anyways, they're saying that we're already at pretty much at 2, and they imagine we're going to go to this world of 3. So as we have more and more people with lots of devices, I'm not sure how much longer we're going to need to be investing in, hard labs and even mobile labs. But we're not there yet. In the short term, we need these things to support what we're doing. So part of the plan was to provide with the necessary labs, both to provide students with access in the buildings to do the type of learning we want to do over the internet, and also to provide any potential testing environments that we might need to as we move towards online testing. The other piece of this is we want...
My bad. Oops. Yep, go back.
That each classroom needs what we refer to as an instructional technology kit, and that includes a projector, a document camera, and a laptop, right? Educators need a way to project whatever it is they want to put in front of the whole class. That's the document camera. They need a laptop, which gives them access to the internet, and they need a projector to be able to project all that. That at a bare minimum, every classroom should have these devices, and that a lot of our teachers are going to trainings that we're paying them to go to get top-notch training on how they should be doing their instruction in the classroom. And it's a given in these trainings that they would have these tools already. That we don't have those things as a matter of course here in Attleboro puts us behind. So that's the that minimum standard that we've set, and that the mayor made a commitment to, and we took our first steps this year with that $100,000+ that went towards providing that first step, which were the labs themselves.
Thank you.
So we phased it out. Phase 1 was labs. Phase 2 would be mobile labs. We wanted to do mobile labs after labs because mobile labs require those wireless connections. And not just the wireless connections themselves, but the ample bandwidth to move through those connections. So, Ms. Coffin talked about how she has wireless access points. The problem is that Wamsutta, like all the schools, are running off a modem that's about as powerful as the modem you have at home. So, all those wireless access points are trying to share a very small amount of bandwidth. So we have to work on our infrastructure before having mobile labs is actually all that useful. So that's why we put that at phase 2. And then phase 3 would be those instructional kits where we would put those in every classroom in the district. And we're beginning next year to model a little bit of that. We're going to put a model classroom in each building where we provide the laptop, the projector, and the document camera, and put it in a classroom where we think it's going to be used extensively, just to try out if what we're imagining is going to work the way that we think it's going to.
I do think that's an important point because, some of these things, it's easy to imagine what it looks like and how it's used, and as soon as someone is ready to cut a check, we can put it in place and we can implement it. But in order, what we talk about is technology utilization, not just technology. We don't want to just go to Radio Shack and buy whatever's on the shelf and then declare that we've revolutionized the district. Unfortunately, the implementation is a lengthy process, and it takes a long time to make sure that we're using what we have effectively. and that it's truly benefiting students and not just giving us sort of a bullet point to say we got X, Y, or Z done. And I think that's important, even if it takes longer.
It's a moving target. Brendan and Wamsutta were both built imagining a world in which students would need computers to learn, but the way they imagine that would look doesn't match the way it works anymore. It's not a desktop, and it's computers that have to be connected to a network, and that wasn't what people were imagining at that time. So we have to really kind of challenge ourselves to keep current with where things are going.
Well, I think that's the experience that the two committees need to constantly be reminding themselves of, that it was not that long ago that everyone felt as though they had a vision as to what it was going to look like, and in some ways it was correct, in other ways it wasn't.
Yeah.
But that's a tall order, obviously, for the administration and for the committees.
So, continuing in September to December, we really need to acquire recommendations for wireless network infrastructure to upgrade the Attleboro Public Schools. So we actually solicited the response of 3 major infrastructure computer companies. One was CDW&G, which is an international company, one of the largest companies, not just in the United States, but worldwide. Also, PC Connect Services, GovConnect, and Hub Technologies. They met with us for a few hours at a time. Then we told them exactly what we're looking for. They then sent their crews into all of the nip, crip, and crannies throughout all the buildings within the school district. When we explained to them exactly what we were looking for, then they provided to us in writing approximately what it would cost to provide the infrastructure, and that's when we found out we needed some other work as well, which would be the increase in the bandwidth was paramount. So at that time, after we got the quotes from these people, how much it was going to cost, comparing oranges to oranges, throughout the entire time, we involved the school committee chairs and the mayor's office regarding what this technology plan was going to look like. So the right hand knew what the left hand is doing 100% of the time. I would be remiss if I didn't say that both chairmen of the school committee and myself, as well as Mr. Sawyer, we always said from day one, this was never a PARC assessment agenda. This was our technology plan, and what the comprehensive assessment was talking about was not getting students ready to take an online test for PARC. This is about what is the right thing to do for our students and what were the skills necessary for our students to compete at the next levels, and so that their education would be enhanced and our teachers' ability for teaching and learning would also be enhanced. So it was never a PARC initiative, and we said that from day one, and people need to know that. But
thank you for reiterating it, because it's an extremely important point. Because
it is.
PARC is something that it's one reason that we need to move forward, but to say that the expansion of wireless in the Attleboro schools is about PARC would be to say that learning is about MCAS. I mean, we're talking 2 completely different spheres.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you.
So as we entered the new year in 2014, starting in January, as the committee knows, and maybe the public doesn't know as much, we knew exactly where we were in some of the infrastructure, but we also knew that we were not utilizing our student information system as well, or we were probably using only 5% about what we had paid for initially, which was called the Aspen Institute, the Aspen Initiative. So at that particular time, we had the acquisition of an Aspen project manager, Karen Pereira, which has paid us major dividends and will continue in the development of the 21 different modules, which will be from IEP writing to student information systems to your transportation system to curriculum mapping and everything in between. So it's a tremendous piece that we're doing, and we've actually refocused other personnel within the district to assist in that, and one of them is Tom Evans. But we also had in the Office of Information Technology personnel through Jonathan, we have all of those other people now with specific job responsibilities and job descriptions that in fact are going to tie into what we do, not just through Aspen, not just through the infrastructure, but how can they assist us, our teachers, our administration, to make sure that we have the things necessary for when we hit the time, when we do have the bandwidth and we do have the infrastructure. So we're actually re-educating and reformulating job descriptions that once we're doing some other things within the district. We also have the next slide is for your own knowledge that there are instructional people and staff within every building each and every day. They have specific jobs now, and those jobs will be changing as we go forward with regard to technology within the schools. Right now, we average one, including a part-time person that deals specifically with our assistive technology with regard to our special education children. So we have one day of the week that just makes sure that those things are up and running, that they continue to run right, and that the teachers and people are trained in order to utilize the assistive technology, which isn't part of their special education plans. So, in short, what's probably more interesting than anything on the slides was the commitment of individuals within the district that is looking to enhance and move the technology forward. The second piece is the commitment that the Attleboro Public Schools has already put forth with regard to these people who are in our schools and trying to do the best they can with what they have right now. So as we look at this, and the last piece of this presentation is about where are we now and where are we going. So in the initiatives right now, we're looking at 3 phases, a 3-phase project that's going to continue. At this particular time, the bandwidth through the mayor's office, in fact, is being increased and worked on. The bid has been accepted. The company has already been awarded the bid. They're in the process for doing this in the city and throughout our schools. And we're waiting for the time that in fact is completed. And to use the term that's been used before, we're waiting to throw the switch. And by throwing the switch of the new bandwidth and the new capabilities of what that wireless is going to our schools, then we can ascertain exactly what is the infrastructure needs within every individual building. We will know that. How far are we away from that? I'm going to say middle, I'm going to be conservative, so I'm going to say the middle of June, we're away from that piece. So when we're ready for that next piece, I know that Jonathan Plourde and Tom Rose and other people have put together the RFP for the integrated technology systems for the Attleboro Public Schools. Utilizing the materials and knowledge from the 3 companies that were on our sites, utilizing what they have sent to us and provided for us, developing through other school systems the RFP that we're looking to do. We have one ready to go to hit the road running as soon as we have the funds available by which to look at this. Also, I think positive news coming from the legislature is I don't believe that the $38 million bond or the $38 million grant proposal for enhancing technology in school districts, that is still on the table, of which they may pay, we may be eligible for a 57% reimbursement of the technology anytime after July 1. So I think the timing is good. The mayor's on the same page as we are. I know that Chairman Murphy has spoken to the mayor on a number of occasions regarding this initiative, and so have I with Bill Lennox and with some of the other people, including Barry Lacasse from the city side. So we're moving forward, and we're still not waiting. Our instructional committees continue to do their work. Our operational committees continue to do their work, and so are we as fast as I would like to be? Well, probably not, but I'm over aggressive when it comes to these things anyways, because I don't want to lose guys like Max any longer, that he's walking across the stage. I don't want to lose any more kids without the necessary technology for them to move forward individually. So,
no, I don't
that's
think
where we are.
you'll certainly never have to apologize for moving aggressively on this issue. I mean, it's one that I think we all recognize we're not as a district where we want to be. It's one in which it is a top priority of this committee and of your administration, and it's going to continue to be. And again, we've got some significant hurdles that we need to get over. But even once we clear those, this work will continue, because absolutely. I mean, this is about preparing students for to graduate into a center that will be defined largely by the way in which these methodologies are embraced. So, thank you for the presentation again.
Can I just make one other comment? It's really apropos that Maxwell is sitting to my right tonight, because I remember in September, October, that Mr. Murphy, you and I and Mr. Sawyer attended a student advisory council meeting. You remember the meeting? Oh, yeah. In which the Student Council Advisory Committee, in fact, conducted survey upon survey, 1,500 people or something of that nature, in which you shared that information with us, and you were going to go out and collect pennies and donate and do this, because the student body under Maxwell's leadership was very concerned about where the schools were technology-wise. And it was really nice to be able to report out, as you recall, David, about where we were, what we were doing, and that the student body, in fact, was on the same page. So we weren't that far behind the student body. So it was really nice that they were willing to participate and so forth, and we're on the same page we were.
Definitely.
So I appreciate that, Max.
Definitely. Thank you, Mr. Sheen. Mr. Withers?
Just a question. I'm glad to see that we are moving forward in kind of a long-range plan, and it's good to see, you know, the steps that are laid out and working with the city. One question that I had is what, if anything's being done to kind of supplement the technology in the schools or improve the technologies in the schools short-term, you know, over the next year, at least before the majority of what we just talked about can really be implemented, because, you know, we've talked about Max graduating this year. There'll be kids that graduate next year, and obviously want to make sure that they're getting at least as much services as they can.
Mm-hmm. Let me comment in this way, that with what we have planned and what the mayor had provided us this year at the $100,000 plus, and what through Mr. Sawyer's office, what we did within the schools, we're going to continue to do that. The biggest problem I have right now is what Mr. Sawyer already alluded to, and that is the bandwidth within the schools right now. If we're putting more computers in there right now, then we may hit a point that they're so slow or they don't work. We know this, that even in this school, if 3 or 4 people are on YouTube at the same time, the whole system shuts down. So we really need to focus on what can we do at what pace. And I think, Mr. Withers, the bottom line is that we'll know better end of June when we throw the switch to see what that is. And when we increase that bandwidth, then we look at what are the other funding sources. Are there grant programs out there? I'm working with some people right now with a connection to the Department of Education with regard to other grant monies, etc. The reality is, from the highest bid for the infrastructure to the lowest bid, you're talking $1 million difference. If we're looking at 57% of that being returned, we're looking at an infrastructure of $350,000. So I'm not so sure we're not going to be able to try to do that with grants or speaking to the mayor afterwards. We know we're coming into a very, very, very difficult budget year. We can't lose sight of the priorities in the district, however, and one of them is, in fact, technology.
Mr. Tyler and then Mr. Storrs.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Sheehan, I mean, technology is cheaper probably than it's ever been, but this is still a very expensive plan that we're putting together. But I think in the end, we all know right now we're spending a lot of money band-aiding the current technology we have in our school district. and a lot of man hours, if you will, man-woman hours or whatever, in putting these lessons together, absence of the technology. So what would you say is some type of figure you would give where there would, if we institute the technology almost to its fullest that we can, there's sure to be funds that could be redistributed through the district because we wouldn't have to be spending them on Band-Aids anymore or as many man hours on stuff. I mean, has that ever been a thought of how much money could actually be?
Yeah. As you know, in a previous district, just the idea of moving toward the Aspen program and being able to do the 21 different platforms instead of the couple that we're doing, that's going to be a savings in the long run to the district. I think we're going to start seeing those savings toward the middle and end of next year. But you're right, Mr. Tyler, that the man hours associated with a lot of these things of cannibalizing and trying to maintain with Band-Aids and keeping things up and running is a chore every single day. And at times, I really believe, and I think you're right, we are chasing good money after bad, and I don't want to do that. I want to be able to look at existing personnel, reallocate them, or maybe we don't need as many. I'm looking at places, example, I'm looking at a potential program that I'll look to develop this summer by which we, in fact, start soliciting. I've shared this with Barry Lacasse and some committee last week about going to different private corporations and businesses. We can do an entire classroom of Chromebooks for $5,000. Every single kid, 25 kids in a classroom for $5,000. And put a plaque outside that the technology use in this room had been donated by
Lancaster family. or whomever.
Right. You know, it could be the Whitefield group of people.
Possible.
But I think we're not going to waste any time. We need to do this as a high priority. And I just look at every kid that we're not able to reach if we don't do that. So it's still going to be a priority. And I know it's a priority with the mayor as well. And I know it's a priority with this committee. So we're not going to leave any rocks unturned to complete this mission.
Last one, Mr. Murphy. And it's more of a comment. I mean, I agree with Dave fully that technology is supposed to support the great teachers that we have in this district. And by all means, that's true. But I do believe it's not too far down the road, or possibly could have happened already, where you're going to have our next legion of great teachers that are coming out in college now, are going to come out, and they're not going to choose Attleboro because they're not going to be able to be the best teachers they can be if they have to do their instructional lessons by pen or marker and talk about when they learn how to do this all through college. And why would they put themselves at a disadvantage in the start of their teaching career in a district that cannot support that? And I think that eventually is what's going to happen in Attleboro if we don't get on the ball. I mean, we have great teachers now, but we all know that people retire and they have a right to. So I would just hate to see Attleboro miss out on the best and the brightest because of not having a proper foresight in doing this stuff.
It's a very good point, and as this committee knows already, and especially the scores knows, that it's not just about teachers, it's about drawing the best administrators. It's about this school committee in this district lost a very effective elementary principal because of the technology dilemma, and we can't afford to do that.
Mr. Storrs?
And it's interesting that you mentioned that because I'm going to jump on that. First, I want to preface the question by I was actually in a classroom here at the high school, a month or so ago for a booster group meeting, and there was an actual chalkboard on the wall, not a dry erase board, a chalkboard, and I just happened to notice that, and it caught my eye. But I remember 7 years ago going down with an elementary principal from Hill Roberts Elementary down to Georgia to a technology, education technology expo. And from what we saw there, we worked together over 5 years to dramatically change Hill Roberts Elementary School. A lot of what you put up here is what we've done there, and I believe beyond. So I think you seem more dedicated now than I've seen the district in ever to getting where we need to go. But the question is, you know, I didn't see anything about, say, smartboard technology, things of that nature, which I know adds further cost. But my real question is, 5 years from now, your vision, what is a classroom?
Every student has a technology device. Students will be using their own cell phones at certain levels. It was mentioned today about being able to use technology devices by which to teach certain things, such as you put a problem up on the board, and there are a series of answers after the discussion takes place, and you plug in your answer on your laptop or on your cell phone. Automatically, the teacher doesn't have to correct anything. You push a button, and there are the results. Now we add more information to the discussion, information that students have by which to make a better decision. And then we say, okay, does anybody want to change their answer? Change them now. Bing. Here's the first answers, here's the second answers. Can someone tell me why they changed their answer with this information and so forth? Okay, this is the correct answer. Bottom line is the interactiveness that takes place between teacher, student and parent is incredible with regard to the technology. The second piece is the classroom. The term differentiated instruction drives me out of my mind because people take a class for maybe 2 or 3 hours and think, oh, I can differentiate my instruction. If you took a whole year class on differentiated instruction and then tried it and trial and error for a couple of years, you might get pretty good at it. Technology allows differentiated instruction by which you three can work over here in a group by which you can progress with the subject matter. However, there's another person that really needs that one-on-one work with the teacher, and that can take place over here. 4 other people are going to be able to work in a separate way, in a separate entity, by which to produce something for the class over in this other manner, and the other kids can do something different as well. It truly allows you to reach the level of every single child who's heterogeneously grouped in your class. So you have kids who may operate in the top 5% and kids who operate in the bottom 5%. It won't matter. The class instruction and where they are can be done at their pace and with regard to the technology provided for enhancing the instruction in the curriculum and being able to modify the curriculum when necessary for certain kids. Where we have a teacher now, if kids go through the high school and they in fact, they're in the highest math classes and all of a sudden they're in AP Physics 2. But we have 7 kids in the class now. They started out with 2 classes of 25. We have 7 kids who want to pursue this at the next level and take the AP exam in AP Physics 2. The question is, can we afford to place a teacher to teach 7 kids AP Physics 2? Well, the answer is probably no, especially in lean budget times. So wait a minute, it's not fair for us not to provide that. The amount of online virtual classes that will be taught at our high schools and middle schools, by which kids will be taking online courses with other kids from around the world, as people are doing right now. That's what we will be doing in a venue by which they will be supervised and so forth. But this is what education is going to become. So it opens up so many, many doors. But classroom structures and the day, and some of the days may be very different than what we used to seeing. It may not be the typical 8 to 3. It may be a very different day as well. And that extension of the day may be there for a lot of kids, because the technology will allow that to take place after school hours and before school hours and at night. There is no hours with regard to what the technology can provide, or groups instruction, or working on projects, or an inquiry-based thing. The technology today is as such that I can be working with different people from all over the world, and it doesn't matter what language they're speaking because it's automatically translated on my computer with what they're saying.
And I think as you talk about the uncertainty of the future in terms of it looking so different than what everyone who went through a school system are used to, I think it really does sort of reaffirm the need for those of us in leadership positions to incorporate flexibility into the decisions that we make, because we don't know exactly what it's going to look like 3, 5, or 10 years from now. And it's our responsibility, despite not knowing for sure, to sort of lay the foundation so that we avoid the type of rigidity that would handicap future school committees, superintendents, administrators, and educators. So, okay, I think this has been a thorough discussion. I think we want to move on because we have both other things to do tonight, and we're going to be hearing a lot more about this topic in the weeks and months ahead. I said at the beginning, this presentation is in a lot of ways a prelude to a subsequent presentation that I anticipate will come before the committee later on during this calendar year, and it's our hope that we'll be able to present some concrete next steps that will be taking place within the community to move this issue forward. So we're going to move on. Mr. Story, why don't you remain, and then Mr. Rose, if you could join the committee so we can get into our preliminary budget discussion. And while Mr. Rose is coming up, Mr. Story, do you have a question?
I was just asking, I know that this next topic is a very lengthy one. Could we take a 5-minute recess?
Yeah, why don't we that sounds like a good idea. Do the Scouts have any objection to a 5-minute recess? No? Okay, good. We'll take a 5-minute recess, and we will reconvene at that time.
Dave, do we have
Okay,
These are the
meeting
bleacher
is
seats
called
over there.
back to order, and we're going to continue on with our new business agenda. And our final item on the new business agenda tonight is the presentation of the preliminary superintendent's budget. This was first introduced to the committee in a special finance subcommittee meeting last week. The budget process, as those who have been through this before know, is a lengthy one. It starts with the preliminary presentation to the finance subcommittee, and then essentially bounces back and forth between the full committee and the finance subcommittee, moving on to various milestones such as the public hearing, which will take place on Monday, May 5th. And right now our tentative timeline calls for this school committee to take its vote on our requested budget on Monday, May 19th. It then goes down the street to City Hall, works its way through the mayor's office, and ultimately the committee and representatives from the school department will appear before the finance committee of the municipal council, and it will go from there. So with that, and again, this is the first public stage of an ongoing discussion that will take place over the course of the next couple of months. Numbers are subject to change as priorities evolve, and that process will play out. But the process, we do need to move forward with it, and so with that, I'll turn it over to our central administration, led by our superintendent of schools, Mr. Sheehan.
Thank you, members of the committee. It's my pleasure to be able to present the 2014-15 school year budget to you. I think the essence of this budget, in fact, is tied with the Attleboro Public Schools core values. And we want to make sure that the following provides the impetus for a student-centered decisions with regard to this budget. And as we've talked on many, many occasions and many subcommittee meetings, that in fact we wish to produce a safe and respectful environment that's necessary for teaching and learning. That we want to make sure that all students can learn, and it's our responsibility to provide the appropriate resources for that learning environment. That education is a shared responsibility among the school, family, community, and the student. And student success is achieved through common goals and collaboration and effective communication. And successful teaching is measured by authentic student learning. And we want to produce a well-rounded student that has the communication, technical, critical thinking, creativity, and problem-solving skills necessary to compete in the 21st century. These, in fact, should be and are the core values of the Attleboro Public Schools, which give us the impetus to produce this budget for you tonight. Mr. Sawyer?
So we've broken down our budget process into three separate areas. The first is educational needs. For FY15, we have listed out our specific needs. The first is 2.5 FTEs for elementary specials. This is to make some adjustments in how we're doing specials at the elementary level. We believe we need a K-12 science coordinator to begin work on bringing together our curriculum into line with the new frameworks that the state has released for comment. The special ed department also needs a student service coordinator to improve services for our special ed students. These would all be requests in addition to what we're currently doing. To provide level services, we would also need a race to the top grant replacement, curriculum expendables, and subscriptions for the Aspen curriculum module. Other requests would include the building requests. Principals had gone through a process by which they asked people in the building what they needed, and they made requests based on what they thought they needed to do the best things that they thought they could do for kids. And we've included in the budget $900,000, $300,000 for each level. We also need money for the infrastructure project, as we discussed in the technology report. And we also believe that this district needs assistant principals at the elementary level. So in total, that would be $451,000 just to keep level services, and an additional $2.4 million for the things that we think that this district needs to bring it forward.
Mr. Tyler?
Mr.
Mr. Sawyer, why are we including the wireless LAN? Wouldn't that be a capital improvement expenditure? That wouldn't be part of our operational budget.
Our hope is that it'll be part of capital improvement, but we need to plan for it one way or the other. So I think it's important that we capture it in all possible places.
It is part of the capital improvement budget. The money is there. It's already, I've already served on the committees with the mayor and his people at City Hall. It is there as well. We're showing it that come hell or high water, we need $750,000 to look at the infrastructure, technology-wise, in the district. Hopefully, the problem, Mr. Tyler, the problem that arises with the this particular item, it doesn't reach the level of urgent with regard to the priorities for capital improvement plans. So it only reaches the level of a P1 status.
I think to be clear, it doesn't reach the level of the urgent designation under
Yes,
the capital improvements
that's
process.
correct.
It is certainly, as
The
we've heard
definition.
tonight, in your presentation and in the middle school
Right.
Administrators,
Absolutely
an extremely
correct.
urgent priority. And I think its inclusion here, and I'm grateful to Mr. Tyler for pointing it out, because I think it is one of the line items that really stands out. And I think it speaks to the degree to which the presentation of this budget has multifaceted in a lot of ways, that we are identifying the financial needs and building a plan to try to help support those needs, but also this budget, like all budgets, tells a story as to what our priorities are, and it's a proper forum to articulate those and promote those within the
Thank you. That's
community.
exactly what the idea is behind this budget.
Mr. Withers.
I don't know how you want to do this, if you want, as we're going through slides, to ask questions, or if you want to wait till you get through the whole.
It might be just as easy to go by each slide
Okay.
and ask the questions then, but it's up to the chair.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see how many questions there are before the chair renders a decision on that one. But because again, this is a preliminary discussion. It will continue next week at the finance subcommittee level, and there'll be other opportunities in this forum, and if necessary, and others at the subcommittee level to have that discussion. But for the time being, why don't we ask questions as they come?
All right, so, well, I think the other big number that jumps out is elementary assistant principals, and I think, as I assume we'll get to shortly, the budget situation isn't all that rosy. So, if you could explain why you think that's something that we really need to make such a large expenditure.
I think there's a number of reasons, the least of which is that the enormous amount of responsibility and expectations on building level administrators today in comparison to 10, 15 years ago is enormous. The most glaring part is in order to do one teacher evaluation effectively, you're looking at 20 hours times the amount of teachers throughout the course of the school year. At the same time, we're asking our teachers, our administration to be educational leaders, but in fact, they're really managers because that's all they have time to do. If they're doing some teacher evaluation and so forth, they're really not in the classrooms that I want them to be in. They're really not becoming the curriculum expert that I want them to be, or leading that charge. I want them to be, to be well versed with regard to the technology piece. I don't want our principals to be relegated to the point of managers when in fact they should. We hire them and pay them to be educational leaders. The second piece of this is that when we look at elementary principals, they come directly out of the classroom, and we expect them to do the job of a veteran administrator the first year they're from the classroom to administrative position. If we had assistant principals, not only could we divide the curriculum work, divide the evaluation work, and what are the expectations associated with administration today, but at the same time, we'd be grooming assistant principals, in fact, to become principals, in fact, to become educational leaders. So with those pieces, we get to enhance our institutions far greater than what we ordinarily would have to do. Dave, anything?
The elementary teachers consistently say that they need more support, that their jobs are very difficult, and that they need help with various aspects of the work. And our elementary principals are spread too thin to provide the adequate support that I think that the teachers are looking for. So we think that increasing the administration at this level would both support the principals in their work, but also support the classroom teachers.
The other piece is that if you were to go into an elementary school 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and come into one of our schools now, they're very, very different. The nature of the kids are different. The amount of children speaking a different language is tremendous. The amount of children who have English as a second language is tremendous. But on top of that, we also have placed kids with special education needs back into our buildings, back where they belong, into our neighborhood schools. Those programs exist in those buildings. They need resources, they need time, they need attention by administration. So consequently, a lot of those programs were never there before, and now they're there. But we've saved a lot of money in the district by putting them there, provide a better education, I think, than alternative programs can offer. And I think those kids need to be in our school district as part of their own community and not bus somewhere else. So this complexity of the school has changed tremendously in the last few years, and that's why we look at it now, but also in the future of what's that going to look like.
Thank you. Mr. Larson?
I think it's important some of us have been through this before and some of us haven't. And I think that we just need to, there's a piece of reality that's going to fall into this whole process. And as we go through, you're going to see 2 columns through the whole process of level service and requests. The requests are, just as the administrators have said, the building managers, for lack of a better word, have been asked, if you could have what you wanted in a perfect world, what would you like? When we look at this list, thinking if there's anyone around the table who thinks that we're going to get an 11% increase this year in the school budget, you might as well leave now. I mean, there is a reality as to what really is going to happen. We need to be very careful about how we discuss this, about calling anything a deficit that is really just it's a request that we would love to have. If there's a way to find it, that would be great. We need to be conscious of the fact that there will only be so much that we can do. We are actually going to have more money than we had last year, which it would be great to have more because we could do more of what we're going to see in the next few minutes. There are a lot of people who are getting a lot less than what they had last year. So, we just need to be conscious of both parts of that equation as we go forward. And there's going to be a reality that none of us are going to like because we're all going to have things that we wished we could have gotten in there. But I think we just need to keep our minds open, keep talking about, what we really think we need going forward.
I appreciate the point you're making, Mr. Larson, but I want to be very clear. This is not a wish list.
I don't mean to imply that it is a wish list.
These are things that the administration has identified that we really believe are needed for us to do the job that's necessary. Now, we fully understand that,
and I don't doubt that for a minute, Mr.
Resources are limited, but this isn't just in a perfect world. This is what we think we need in this world.
I may have misspoke.
No, I don't think either one of you misspoke. I think you're both making extremely valid points that need to be made. And, the underlying point there is that the fiscal year will end on June 30th. And the next fiscal year will begin. And there'll be a fiscal year after that, and there'll be many more fiscal years after that. And the priorities as they've been identified by our chief educators will transcend this particular budgetary process that we are in. And part of the responsibility of building a budget is to identify those long-term priorities so that in time they can be addressed. Hopefully, many of them are addressed in this cycle. Many of them will not be. That is a reality. It will be up to this committee in consultation with our administration to prioritize effectively so that way we can move the school system forward as much as possible and leave this district poised to continue to move forward in the years ahead. So that's all part of what we're doing, and that's as Mr. Sawyer said, not a wish list. The wish list would be a much higher number, frankly, but we need to draw the line somewhere, and that's what we pay these gentlemen and many other individuals throughout the district to do. So, Mr. Sheehan, you want to take it from there?
Yep. Tom?
Thank you very much, Mr. Sheehan. Next few graphs in regard to operational expenses is to
piggyback onto what Dave said a few moments ago, level services and requests, same format. The first message I want to convey is that all of these items that are listed in the legal services column, the level services column, pardon me, are all expenses that we incurred in fiscal year 14 that we paid, but if we could build our new budget for FY 15, we would put these in, we would add these funds to our budget. We wouldn't try to pay for them out of carryover or rob them from Peter to pay Paul within the budget. And so those items, level services, bump up in utilities, water and sewer, legal fees, audit fees, internet service. Small example, internet service, for example, we normally pay for that through the E-rate discounts that we receive. Well, we're still expecting E-rate discounts in fiscal year 15, but wouldn't it be great if we had that budgeted in our regular budget and we could take it, we could use those E-rate discounts for something else? The two items on the request side are items that we do not have this fiscal year: personnel director and school security. Total $352,530. Questions on the view graph?
Just a quick comment that for those finance subcommittee, I apologize for sounding redundant, but it's not that we don't have school security. We have school security. Our schools are safe. We're talking about a different initiative, a consulting group that will come in and help us to revamp some plans. It's one that we're going to be bringing before the committee in the near future. But we are not hiding there's not a $25,000 security risk that we have neglected to mention. So again, when we talk about the school security, I implore the administration to frame it in a way that makes clear what this is and what it's not.
Well stated.
Moving on.
Personnel. Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. Once again, obligations and requests. Obligations are, assuming that our contracts were to continue forward from FY 14 to FY 15, and we know that the contracts die on June 30, 2014. But if we were to keep the same scales, the same salary tables, steps and lanes, we would need approximately $1.2 million on the teacher side and about $175,000 for all the other unions that we have, assuming that we were to keep the same scales, same grades and steps. On top of that, we also will incur probably close to $285,000 in expenses in regard to substitutes. I want to convey the message loud and clear. Substitutes is not a rampant issue or problem within the Attleboro School Department. We purposely have budgeted for this account in the amount of $48,500 for a few years. We have budget dollars elsewhere within the regular budget and also within grants to help pay for substitutes, but this particular account is under budgeted year after year. The 282.6 bumps it up to where it should be. And then the AA tuition reimbursement. For years it's been budgeted $60,000. It really should be $80,000 because, as you probably know, every teacher has the opportunity to be reimbursed up to $700 for their educational initiatives. And so those are the obligations. The requests. How about a 2% pay hike across the board? If we were to do that, teachers would mean, for the teachers, that would mean an extra $1.8 million. And if at any time anyone has any questions at all as to where these numbers came from, please let me know. I've got the data right here. And I'm happy to say that I know that the data is accurate. $1.8 million on the teacher side, $350,000 on everywhere else. The administrators, myself, Dave, and many other administrators, 87.6. Not Mr. Sheehan. Not Mr. Sheehan, everyone else. And other personnel, 85,000. When I talk about other personnel, these are the individuals with the individual contract, like the folks that work in office technology. So the total on the obligation side is about 1.7 million. On the request side is 2.3 million. Total comes to a little over $4 million.
I think there's an important point that needs to be made. I think this slide makes it well, is that in addition to identifying our short-term and long-term priorities, in addition to developing a roadmap that will determine how the district is supported and how initiatives are funded going forward, another challenge when a budget is built is determine how do we as a district inject more transparency and accountability into our processes. And I know that it's been a priority of Mr. Sheehan and you, Mr. Rose, and the entire administration to identify areas in the budget in which it may not be accurate to say that corners were cut, because I think there was a rationale behind the decisions that were made with regard to essentially leaving some line items underfunded, knowing that there would be surpluses elsewhere, and we could address those needs as the year went on. I think what the superintendent feels, and I think this committee feels, that that is not a particularly sustainable way for a budget to transition from one fiscal year to the next, and in the hope of wanting to cultivate greater transparency and, frankly, credibility with our partners in the district and beyond. I think that's an issue that you're attempting to address in this. And it would be an issue, frankly, that would be very easy to sweep under the rug. That would be the easy way to do it. But I think that the effort that you've put into in trying to make this a more authentic reflection as to how the district's money will be spent is important. But it also adds an extra challenge, because it requires explaining why the substitute line item, for instance, appears to be going up. And so it's just something that we need to keep in mind. You know, as eventually some school committee was going to have to do this, and I think it's our responsibility to take on these types of tasks and make sure that our successors don't have to do this. So,
Agreed.
This next slide reiterates what Mr. Lawson has said with the 11% increase. So, Tom, would you just go through the slide, please?
By all means, Mr. Sheehan. These numbers that are listed on the top row are numbers that are direct lifts from earlier within the view graph, or from earlier in the presentation. Our fiscal year 14 net school spending budget is $62.4 million, specifically. If we're to go into our munis budget, take our total budget and back out transportation, that's the number we get, $62,382,504. We talked about educational needs, operational needs, personnel needs. Well, if we add those three numbers to the 62.4, we would like our net school spending number in FY15 to be $69,624,798. That would capture educational, operational, and personnel needs. Total increase would be $7.2 million, or an 11.6% increase.
that would be nice.
Please keep in mind that, I'm sorry, Dave, just one quick thing, and if we're to break that out between level services and additional requests, we've got $2,345,983 of level services. This is just taking what we have in FY14 and moving forward to FY15, and approximately $4.9 million in additional requests. The two combined come to the $69,624,798.
I would just like to add that I know that number for an increase of $7.2 million is a whopper of a number, but to put it into perspective, if Attleboro had a per pupil expenditure that was average for the Commonwealth, that would mean about $2,000 more per student than we do get historically. And that $2,000 increase would be an increase of $11.8 million. So that $7.2 million isn't even enough to bring us up to an average per pupil expenditure. So it's not that outlandish of a number if you put it, I think, into that context.
I think also one of the most important numbers on that slide is the one to the bottom left. The level services in this district, no raises, nothing. Level services, the same service we provided children this year that we provide next year. We're looking at $2,345,983.
Mr. Tyler, then Mr. Storrs.
And Tom, just doing quick math, if we take the $2,345,000, that's about 3.7% than what we have for the current FY14 budget.
Correct.
Okay.
The answer is yes.
That later then. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Tyler.
Mr. Storrs.
So with that 2.345,
Yes.
you know, I know that every year, because the state is supposed to increase, or has historically increased our funding, so that we can handle increases of that nature, because there's increases, as we were talking about, to the steps and lanes, to insurance, to all transportation, energy, all those other things, which adds up to excess of $2 million for a school district our size. What was the state increase, if you could, for last year?
Sure. Hold on, please.
Actually, if you can give us the last 3 years, that'd be.
I can do that.
I had a feeling you might be able.
One quick thing, and I know that you know this already. The 2,345,983 and the 48,96,3, that adds to the total increase of the 7,242,294. I had misspoken. I said that added to the 69,624. So the total net school spending.
I was going to call you on that later.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sheehan. I'm glad it's glad. Yes, let me grab this file.
It was only, while Tom's doing that, it was only a few years ago, only a couple of years ago, I think it's 2011-12, that the state increase from Chapter 70 number was in fact 12.09% increase for the district. A 12% increase for the district, only a couple of years ago.
Okay, thank you very much for the extra time. What I'm going to read to you first is I'm going to read to you the total numbers for FY 11, 12. Now, I don't want you jotting these numbers down. You're welcome to, but I can email this file to you at the end of the meeting. I'm going to tell you the numbers 11, 12, 13, 14, and what we have right now for 15. First, let's start Chapter 70. Then I'm going to read to you the percentages. If I get unclear, stop me, wave your hand. FY 11. 28,610,552 was the Chapter 70 funds that we received. When I say we, the city received from the state. FY 12, 28,992,951. FY 13, 32,496,935. FY 14, 34,079,799. And FY 15, 34,235,474. Those were the Chapter $70 from the state. Now, what does that equate to in the amount of percentage increases? Between 11 and 12, the dollar difference was $382,400. Excuse me. Oh, thank you. Between 11 and 12, the dollar difference was $382,000, and the percentage was 1.34 between 11 and 12. Between 12 and 13, the dollar difference was $3,503,984. The percentage difference was 12.1. Between 13 and 14, the dollar difference was $1,582,864. Percentage difference was 4.9. Between 14 and 15, the dollar difference is $155,675. Percentage difference is 0.046 or 0.46. Less than 0.5%.
So just to translate that, Tom.
Yes.
We have a drastic reduction in
Chapter 70 funds.
In Chapter 70 support from
Yes.
the Commonwealth.
Yes.
And so when we talk about the budgetary challenges and how they're manifesting themselves in this particular budget cycle, our issue is that our budget has not grown to keep pace with the needs of our district, and the concentration of dollars is being weighted increasingly on the municipality. Essentially, we're getting less support from the state.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
That table that you just read with regard to the dollar difference from 11 to 12, 12 to 13, 13 to 14, and expected 14 to 15, and the percentage difference, if that could be forwarded. I know we've seen this in various forms. I'm a little concerned about the germs being circulated.
I believe that you started the germs circulating.
There's an argument that I did. There's an argument that I did, but I'm feeling so much better now.
You are.
But Mr. Rose, if you could forward just that table with those numbers isolated to the committee, that would be helpful.
By all means, I sure will.
Okay, why don't you move on to the next slide?
Okay, thank you. So,
Go ahead, Tom.
thank you, Mr. Sheehan. So net school spending, city budget. The required net school spending on the city side is about $66 million this fiscal year. Next fiscal year, it's about $67 million. The eligible city expenditures, these are the expenditures that the city incurs every single year on behalf of the Attleboro School Department. Or I should say on behalf of education / Attleboro School Department. Two small examples. One is the amount of money the city has to pay for charter schools. Another example is the administrative costs that the city provides, or administrative costs that the city incurs in support of processing every single check that goes out to support the school department. Every salary check, every vendor check, and so on. So those are just some small examples. I have all the data in the end of year report. Anytime you'd like to take a look, let me know. But bottom line is, those are expenses that are not directly going to the school department in the form of the regular budget, but they are expenses that the city's incurring, which they can easily say they're net school spending eligible, tack it onto my list, because they are. The charter school reimbursement, which is an opposite, bottom of those are dollars that the city's getting back, unfortunately, those are going down in FY15, which isn't that much of a shock considering that Chapter 70 went up 0.46%. But the charter school reimbursement is a hard, fast number that comes directly from the state, and that actually is going down between FY14 and FY15. The end result is this, and it was the mayor and Barry Lacasse who shared these numbers with us back on the 25th of March. The end result is the city has $813,365 set aside that they can give the school department, built within the funds that they know, based on what we have right now, they're going to get for fiscal year 15. 813,365.29, or about 1.3% increase.
So let me clarify something for the entire committee. The most important number up there is the $813,000 number, or 1.3%. The reality is that the state's contribution from Chapter 70 money from that piece is $65,000. The city contribution to the school department is $748,000. So right now, when we looked at the maintaining level funded services at $2,345,812, something of that. In fact, we can then minus, because we're getting an additional from city and from the state, $813,365.29. When we look at that number, we in fact right now are looking at a $1.5 million deficit.
Yeah, and it's important to note that that is what we're looking at this moment.
At this moment.
And it is, if for those looking for silver linings, I would say that it's April and not June. And we have 2 months to prioritize accordingly and to collaborate with our partners in the municipal government and to try to figure out a way that the decision that is being made at the state level does not have a detrimental impact on the students of the Attleboro schools. Mr. Withers, and then Mr. Storrs.
I think, I mean, certainly to those of us who aren't in education as a occupation, the fact that the state would make this policy change, it seems, and seemingly de-emphasize education for whatever reason, which is astounding, comes as a surprise. And I'm just wondering if there was any indication that this was going to happen, and also if there's been any reason on why this year they've decided that education didn't need to be funded like it has been in the past.
I asked the same question at 2 major forums, and it would have been nice for somebody last year to say there will be a drastic decrease in state funding the following year. Be careful how you spend your dollars. And I wish they had sent that 2 or 3 years out, that this was the target date, is going to go down, etc. They did not do that at all. I don't believe that there is a silver lining come June or whatever, but I do believe that our municipal government and the mayor and so forth, in fact, are very, very concerned at what these numbers and the effect that would have on this school system. He is not happy about this at all. And so consequently, these are numbers that we're playing with at this particular time. I really believe that if you read the tea leaves per se, this is about the state saying they want the cities and towns to start contributing more to local education than in fact they have been before. Well, unfortunately, there are some towns just struggling beyond belief to begin with. I mean, I know the mayor is $900,000 over budget for just the snow removal this year. And all the municipalities are probably in that same boat. So there's no money to spare, et cetera. And so it would have been nice to have a heads up from the state. I think we could have done some very, very different things.
Mrs. Storrs?
You know, what I'm seeing, if I heard everything you said before, correct, for the last 4 years, the increase has been anywhere between 1.5 to $3.5 million. And then this year they've made a change to the formula. So is it a $65,000 increase, or is it?
Yes, $65,000 from the state.
So it's much more. I thought it was like 200 and something. But either way, whether it's 65 or 233,000, the point is we've gone from an expected normal increase of 1.5 to 3.5 million over the last 4 years to 200 and something $1,000. That almost seems criminal what they are doing to us. I know that throughout the Commonwealth, some districts aren't going to be affected, if at all, because they get the majority of their funding from the city,
right,
from the taxes of the city. Attleboro is not that way. It's pretty much a 50-50 kind of split thing. So this change affects a district like us more so. Am I understanding that correct?
Okay, if I answer?
Sure.
Great. The answer to your question is yes, you're absolutely correct, Mr. Storrs. A couple of quick things. The first thing is, I don't want to say that the state has changed its equation. God knows that there are a lot of people that want to change the way Chapter 70 and net school spending gets calculated.
Well, there's 9 of us here. As of this year.
But it hasn't changed yet. And as most of you probably know, it's a function of per capita income. It's a function of real estate values and so on. We won't go through all the specifics. All the data is out on the DESE website. That equation hasn't changed. What has, quite frankly, what has changed is this: the amount of money that the state is willing to give toward education. Someone said that a few minutes ago. There's no question that clearly has been stated loud and clear when you get a 0.46% increase. There's one other quick point, though, I want to make, because I don't want there to be confusion. You heard me say, and you're going to get, before the night's out, you're going to get this file, and it's going to say 155,000. Mr. Sheehan and the mayor said 65,000. Both numbers are right. Here's the difference. 155 is the total number that the state is giving in regard to increase in Chapter 70. What we're going to see on our end is 65. The other 90,000 has to go for the city and many of its other responsibilities for education, to include charter schools and so on. So we collect 65 of that, but the total amount of money the state is giving to the city is 155, and you'll see those numbers. In case there's any question or confusion, don't hesitate to give me a call.
Thank you. Why don't we move on to the next slide?
Last one, Tom.
Thank you very much, Mr. So what's our deficit? If we look at fiscal year 15, well, the FY15 request, we already talked about that before. That's a $69,624,798. That's what we have this year for net school spending, plus all the ads that we talked about earlier. Our fiscal year 15 net school spending, with the increase $813,000 from the city, is $63,119,495. So we're looking at a deficit right now of about $6.5 million.
Mr. Larson?
I realize it's straight math, but a matter of sense. I think we need to be extremely careful about trying to say this is a deficit. And all due respect to how the numbers are put together, I think projecting that sends the wrong message. So I think I know I'm harping on it, but I think we just need to be careful about that message, because we need to have some reality as to the message also.
I agree with the reality thing, Mr. Lawson, 100%. I've dealt with this a long time in the reality piece. But your administration would be remiss if we didn't share with this city and the 9 school committee members about what we feel is necessary by which to provide a quality education for the children of Attleboro. And so that's what we've done. Do I think that, I also believe in the reality, and I know what that reality is. I've already shared with you what I think that this deficit's going to end up being. And yes, we have pieces on one side of the ledger and other pieces in order to maintain a level service budget. Right now, with the money provided from the city and the state, we cannot provide a level service budget in this community. It's that simple.
Mr. Larson.
And I don't want to be, I'm not arguing with you.
No,
I'm
I know
very
that.
appreciative of the number because it's very important information for us to have.
Right.
I just, how it's perceived, I guess, is the next step.
And that's why we do this.
It is information that we as a committee need to have about the system, absolutely.
And that's why we do this in steps,
Yeah.
incremental steps, which I won't go to that last slide, but that's coming, of what those next steps are going to be.
Yeah, I mean that's the issue that we're dealing with. We're dealing with an extended process that is designed to, or required at least, to play out in a very public way. And as we go through these various steps, I think Mr. Larson makes a very valid point that the tone we employ in many ways is as important as the numbers that are shared, because we are at the early stages of this process. We're not where we would like to be at the starting point. It would be much more comfortable if the numbers were, if we could take everything from the left column, put it on the right, and vice versa. But that's not where we are, and so like every other entity building a budget, we need to prioritize accordingly, and we need to, as the administration has already begun, to look at every possible way in which we can identify savings, and then we'll move forward and make the decisions that we need to make. But that the degree to which we are in the early stages of this process cannot be emphasized enough, I don't think. Mr. Tyler?
Yes, thank you, Jim. Bill, I agree with you absolutely. You know what I mean? You don't want to project, a $6.5 million deficit. That gets us in much bigger water than what we want to be in. But I also agree with the administration. That's their job. Their job is to tell us what exactly the school district needs at every level. And I think that's what they've done, and I appreciate that. But I mean, just by looking at the numbers that I've seen, I'd say conservatively, if you look at this, is between $4 and $4.5 million worth of stuff that has been kicked down the road. Why we're sitting here tonight talking about this $6.5 million deficit of things, and so that's what my biggest concern is. We've been kicking the can down the road for so long. 6.5 this in FY15 becomes 8 million in 16. It becomes 12 million in 17. So, so I understand what you're saying, Bill, and you're absolutely right. I mean, you don't want to throw that big of a number, but in reality, this has been something that's building, that we've been kicking down the road for far too long. And when I look at that $4 million number, and I think that's very conservative by putting that number out. And if the technology piece would have been initiated a couple of years ago, as I had hoped, I guarantee this number would be less than half of what we've seen, because we just spent a lot of good money on bad things, to tell you the truth. And as Chairman Murphy said, we have to be talking about what's sustainable and what's going to make this district move forward. Right. So, thank you,
Mr. Storrs?
To piggyback on what Mike just said, even if we were to continue kicking that can, all those cans down the road for another year or beyond, we're still in an almost multi-million-dollar deficit. We're still going to, based on the numbers we have, get to July 1st, hopefully by, I'm sorry, I don't want to say July 1st, because by then hopefully we'll have this figured out. But by the time the budget has to be voted out, we're in a place where we are in a deficit no matter what. Even if we continue to kick those cans down the road and not add the things that you guys have specified we need, and we go with the level funding, we're in a deficit. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's all I want.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have as much money as we'd like. That's, there's no getting around that. There's no sugarcoating that. We don't have as much money as our students deserve. There's no getting around that. There's no sugarcoating that. But this is not the first year that a school committee has looked at a very gloomy budgetary forecast. It's probably not going to be the last year. School committee looks at a very gloomy budgetary forecast, and through a lot of hard work amongst the administration and our educators throughout the district, we've always found a way to be able to prioritize and move forward, and that is what's going to happen this time. The Attleboro schools are not going to come to a screeching halt on July 1st. We're going to continue to make progress, and we're going to do so by relying on the immensely talented educators that we have, and by collaborating with all of our partners in the municipal government and any other entity willing to collaborate with us. So, you know, whether the exact terminology we use, exactly where we put the numbers, you know, those may make for nice headlines, but they don't tell an accurate story. Because the reality is, you know, the numbers that we're looking at right now was an informed determination by the administration as to where to draw the line with regard to what our needs are and what is beyond our needs would be nice, but is not going to make it into this particular proposal. The committee will ultimately have to draw another line. Other entities in government will draw additional lines. That's what we do during budget season. We prioritize and we draw lines, and we do so always with the best interests of the students in mind. But it's frankly, it's just too early right now to declare a crisis, or really to be able to identify specifically, exactly to the penny, what is the size of our problem. We have a problem. We're going to address the problem. We're going to move forward. Mr. Withers?
I think a lot of what I was going to say, you just kind of touched on. I think, you know, I touched on it at the Finance Subcommittee as well, of why the $69 million number makes me feel uncomfortable as a proposal, because it's so much more than what we know we're going to be able to get from the city. And I think when we start talking about that, and what Superintendent Sheehan said, and it wasn't meant the way it was said, but this is what we need to provide a quality education. Well, you know, we're not going to get $69 million, and we don't need $69 million to provide a quality education. It's not the best case scenario. It's not, you know, it's not a wish list. It's a realistic assessment of, you know, how can we make the progress we want to make and continue to move forward. But if we get 63 million, if we get 64 million, we're going to provide a good quality education to our students, and that's what makes me nervous about the situation, because about the number 69 million, because when we're talking about the gap, that's what becomes the headlines. And then, you know, if we don't get that money, are we going to provide the services we need to?
I think you make a real good statement, Mr. Withers, because we're going to provide the best education possible for our kids, no matter what the money is, no matter what. I know how hard our teachers work, I know how the administration work, and I know how caring the parents are, and I know how talented our kids are. I think Mr. Murphy used the word priorities. Mm-hmm. After having conversations with 9 members of the school committee, 100% of the administration, and dozens of parents in the school district, our next slide, I think we can all agree upon, which is priorities for closing the budget gap. We know collectively that we want to meet the needs of our students in our district. And we need to be able to collaborate with all of our bargaining units, and fortunately or unfortunately, we have 7 bargaining units that we will be negotiating with this year. We also know that we certainly want to be able to hopefully maintain the level of services that we had just 1 year ago. And we also know that we need to strengthen some of the organizational supports. We're going to get to those pieces. I really believe that. And I think what's really positive is that I think the mayor recognizes some of this as well. And that he's behind equality. He's a product of the school system. He's an alum. And consequently, you know, his heart's here as well. So he doesn't, in my conversation with him, he does not want to see us go backwards. So we're all in this together. And we're going to produce a budget at the end of the day, and we're going to provide a quality education for people. But as you well know, in the presentation of this budget, you also have a thought process about what is needed for the future in this district. And unfortunately, we were dealt a hand that no one had indicated to us that was going to take place. And but we have to deal with the hand, and we will deal with it together.
And frankly, you know, the task only changes to a certain degree. Had the state dealt us a better hand through greater Chapter 70 support. Had they provided had the state provided a budget that's reflective of a state that values education in the proud tradition of Massachusetts, we would be still identifying needs that are not going to be met.
Absolutely.
Because that is part of the responsibility of building a budget, is identifying those priorities down the road. But I think what we're seeing here, frankly, is a committee that's trying to balance two competing responsibilities. On one hand, we have the responsibility to advocate for our students, identify these needs, not to kick the can down the road, and to convey to the community the degree to which they need to view these as urgent. That we cannot, public education does not wait for communities that want to deal with problems down the road. Public education is going to move forward at a particular pace, with or without Attleboro, and we have to be prepared to advocate zealously on behalf of the students in the school system. On the other hand, we have a responsibility to govern the district and to identify exactly how we prioritize in a way that sustains the progress that we've built and does not create unnecessary panic or anxiety that is essentially just counterproductive. Because again, we're drawing lines. Whatever our budget numbers were last year, 63 million and change, if we were, and again, the previous committee, I think took a big step forward in being transparent when the budget was approved with numbers that exceed the net school spending minimum. That is a step toward trying to be transparent and identify a budget that's based on the needs of the district. That number was still significantly less than what we could have just to get up, as Mr. Sawyer said, to what the average per student expenditure rate is in Massachusetts. So, this is a very difficult challenge because we're trying to fulfill two responsibilities, and at times members may lean toward one responsibility, and other members may lean toward sort of emphasizing one of the other responsibility. But everyone recognizes that we have to do both, and that's just part
and
of
at
the
the end of the day, a month or so, 2 months from now, we will all be on the same page, without question.
Exactly, and again, but the process needs to play out.
Right.
That's just part of the fun of the springtime on the school committee.
We specifically left this last page separate from the others because it really doesn't have anything to do with net school spending per se. Is that right,
Yes,
Tom?
absolutely right,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Sheehan. Thanks very much. Transportation is is what's called an ineligible expense or a non-net school spending expense. For this fiscal year, our budget is $3,083,347. The request that's been made is for approximately an extra $385,000, which would bring it up to about $3.5 million. And there are really three reasons for the increase. The first reason would be some new vehicles, 3 vehicles in particular. 2 vehicles that have a wheelchair lift and 1 big yellow bus. Another item is the increase in expenditures that we have with homeless students. Students that live in Attleboro and go to school outside. Or students that live outside of Attleboro but then get transported in and attend one of our schools every day. That expense has been rising, as well as the cost to transport our students that have special needs to a school other than an Attleboro school, because as of yet, we don't have the programs. That particular cost, those costs have been rising as well. Those 3 items are the reasons why there's a request for an extra $385,000. Any questions on the transportation slide?
I'd just like to add one thing before a school committee member asks the question, that we have also in the next 1 to 2 months, Tom and I will be presenting different options for the school committee with regard to the aged fleet that we're currently operating under, and what are those options for the school committee to move forward with regard to owning our own buses or working on those particular pieces. But as of right now, to do this, because we had deadlines with regard to the CIP with the city, we had to put those numbers in there now or not put them in at all. So that's why that piece is in there. That's not to sway the committee one way or the other, but we had to put it in now or never put it in at all. So it was part of one of the options, so to speak.
Just a quick piece. the committee voted on March 31st to communicate to our state legislature delegation our concerns over the growing and fluctuating costs of the McKinney-Vento compliance with the McKinney-Vento Act. That communication did go to the state legislature today. The committee members saw a draft of it over the weekend, and since in the meantime the legislature has given us something else to complain about, we were able to insert a paragraph also raising our concerns with regard to Chapter 70 funding as well. So, you know, what impact that has, you know, that's something that can be debated at a later time, but I do think it's part of our responsibility as a body is to make sure that our partners in the general court understand the difficulty that their leadership is creating for municipalities like Attleboro.
As Mr. Murphy had shared at the earlier in the budget presentation, the last page, in fact, clarifies for all the members in the community the timeline that's associated with the budget process, in which we'll come to dollars that we can all agree upon. And so, you have that? No? There it is. So, Mr. Murphy, would you like to comment on this? Because those are the particular dates. You've already mentioned some of them before. 2 dates have already passed. The Finance Subcommittee presentation and tonight's school committee meeting. Then we have to advertise by the 19th by school committee policy the public hearing. Then we do have the May 5th public hearing. Then May 19th is the school committee, the approval of the school committee's budget proposal. And then on the submission to the submission of the school committee's budget proposal to the mayor, and then the city council presentation of the mayor's budget, and then the school committee's final approval of the budget. So those are the timelines that we're looking at, so everyone has them and have a copy of them.
Yeah, so it's a 2-month process that began at, this is April 7th, that is actually April 2nd, was the initial presentation of the Finance Subcommittee. There is another Finance Subcommittee meeting this week. As Mr. Larson and I spoke earlier today, if necessary, there will be additional Finance Subcommittee meetings scheduled to help work through this process, but the committee will essentially take up this issue 2 more times before our actual vote. May 5th, subsequent to the public hearing, which is going to be advertised this Saturday in the Sun Chronicle. I've advised Mr. Rose to essentially qualify the language in the advertisement to say that it is a budget of approximately X number of dollars. We don't know exactly what the ultimate request is going to be at this point. We have our preliminary numbers from the superintendent, but I don't want to get into locking in numbers before the Finance Subcommittee and the committee has had a chance to do their work. So we'll qualify it with that language. That advertisement will take place. It's currently scheduled for 6:30 p.m. on May 5th. Right now, the committee is somewhat in vain trying to begin our meetings at 6:30 p.m. Between now and the end of the school year to allow for the necessary executive sessions related to the bargaining. If we're gonna do that, then the public hearing really should start at 6 p.m. as opposed to 6:30. But I'm just going to touch base with my colleagues prior to finalizing that advertisement to make sure that we're going to have a committee here at 6 p.m. to hear our public, which would be an important part of a public hearing. So,
if I can on that?
Yes, Mr. Storrs.
I know in the past we talked about moving that time earlier, and we had heard from constituents that because of their work commitments, having it at a later hour was better. So I just want
perhaps
to throw
we'll have
that
it at
out
6:15.
Just figured I'd throw that out there.
We'll
as a
split the
concern.
difference with the constituents. Frankly, the public hearing can stay open, and as people want to come in, they're welcome to. But we'll figure that out. It's definitely going to be Monday, May 5th, at a time to be determined. Advertisement will be in this week, and then we'll begin the process of finalizing it on the school committee end, and ultimately sending it down to Park Street for consideration by our partners in the municipal government. So that's our timeline. Again, this is an introductory conversation, and that conversation will continue in the coming weeks. So, but thank you very much to the administration for getting us started, and we look forward to working with you throughout this process. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our subcommittee reports, starting with our Curriculum and Instruction Subcommittee and our Chair, Ms. Singer.
We did not have a meeting this month. We postponed it, and so our next meeting will be May 13th at 6:30.
Thank you, Ms. Singer. Our Policy Subcommittee report and our Chair, Mr. Withers.
Yes, we met on April 7th, and at that meeting we discussed our safe school policies, updating those, and also updating our communications to the public in conjunction with that, in both in incidents when the safe school policies would be in play, and also in other instances we're working on getting a draft policy together that the policy committee can review, make comments on, and our hope is to have a new policy in place by the start of the next school year, certainly. So that's an ongoing discussion that I would imagine will be taking place over the next several months.
We look forward to that.
Skipping down to the bottom item, the next meeting is where we'll continue that discussion is on May 12th, 2014 at 6:30 p.m. And the only other item in my report is I'd like to remove the table policies from the March 31st school committee meeting. I don't know if you want me to make a motion to do so, or...
Sure.
All right, I'd make a motion that those policies be removed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
I don't know that that's my fault there. The motion probably isn't necessary, but for a belts and suspenders approach, which is how
better safe than sorry, right?
There you go. Anything else, Mr. Withers?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Withers. Mr. Larson with the Finance, Facilities, and Procurement Subcommittee report.
There was a meeting held on April 9th. The chairman was good enough to chair the meeting for me. Would like to entertain a motion to endorse the memorandum of agreement related to the health insurance between the City of Attleboro, the Attleboro School Committee, and the coalition of all of its unions and their exclusive bargaining representation.
So moved.
Second.
This is a process that the city and the schools have been in with all of the bargaining units in an attempt to maintain some of the health insurance costs across the city, and it was great that everyone was able to work together in this initiative. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Bill,
yes.
Sir, do we know what the result of those discussions and votes have been? Are they still ongoing?
They are.
They're still ongoing? Okay. All right, thank you.
My understanding as of today, 3 city unions have, they're in the process of bringing it back to their rank and file and haven't done so yet.
Okay.
The school department have done that completely and with a 4-0.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just verify? If, on the city side, if one of the unions there balks, then it negates the whole thing, is that correct?
Initially it does, except for then the mayor and the principal players are going to speak to the rank and file directly to answer any questions and potentially vote again, depending on what their understanding is.
Understand.
Second item, we have a request from Tom Rose, our business manager, for budget transfer. The money would be coming out of the health insurance HMO line item in the amount of $220,919. And the money would be moved to the telephone account, $20,919. Other legal services, $40,000. Lights and power, $75,000. Heating and gas, $50,000, and McKinney-Vento, $35,000, for a total of $220,919. Entertain that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This next item, I'm going to ask Tom to come back up to the table. If I wasn't at the meeting, just for a little clarity.
Sure.
As some of you may or may not know, as Tom's getting ready, electric costs going forward are skyrocketing, to say the least. I know at my company personally, we're facing approximately about a 30% increase over the next few years. And I know what that's going to do to my bill. I've seen some of the projections for what Tom's looking at, and I've had discussions with the mayor as to what he's looking at on the city side. The numbers are staggering. A lot of this has to do with how they're handling the solar SREC credits. Also, the fact that there's only so much natural gas coming into New England, which is how a lot of the electricity in New England is actually created. If New England continues to grow at the way it does without another pipeline bringing natural gas into this Northeast, we're going to be in serious trouble, I think, going forward in the next 5 to 10 years. But as for right now, I'll turn it back to Tom.
Great. Thanks very much, Mr. Larson. There are 3 messages I want to convey. The first message is this. Our current contract with electricity, or for electricity through direct energy, is going to expire in July. So we're going to have to renew at some point, and actually the sooner the better. The second message is, although there is no, I could talk to 6 people today and I'd get 6 different answers. But the bottom line is no one knows for sure, but there's a strong indication that the state is going to apply what's called a solar tax for all communities to help, frankly, fund this solar program, to make it more affordable, to make it more creative, and to try to get more people involved. If we have a contract in place before the end of April, we'll be grandfathered in, and we won't be subject to that tax. The potential tax could be as much as $15,000 to $20,000 in this fiscal year based on Attleboro's demand and the usage of electricity. So quite frankly, that's been the main stimulus to this process, specifically trying to get this contract approved by the end of April so that if in fact there's a solar tax, we're going to be immune to that particular tax. And then the third message and the last message I want to convey before we talk a little bit about the vendors is this. Strongly recommend only 12 months for 2 primary reasons. Number one, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm the wizard and I know exactly how all the utility rates are going to go, but there appears to be an indication the electricity rates are going to be going down. And so if we lock in over 3 years, and some of you may have had a chance to take a look at the documents, clearly the vendors can offer a lower price the longer and longer you go out, which is great. The negative is if prices go down, as I've been told that they may very well, we can still take advantage of that lower rate just by locking into a 12-month contract. And about a year from now, we'll go back and we'll do the exact same thing. And frankly, then we may get a bigger bang for our buck, depending on the decrease in electricity rates. So the reason why I recommend 12 months is because of that. The other item is this. I probably have gotten phone calls from at least 3 other vendors who found out about Attleboro, because word gets around. Please, please, please make sure you add me to your list next fiscal year. I can beat this vendor. I can beat that vendor. This person's a broker. This person's a broker. I can beat this person. I am very confident that there would be at least 6 different companies that we would send the request for bid out to in about a year from now. If we go with a 12-month contract, again, another reason why I think we'd get an attractive rate for July of 2015. So recommend 12 months. Now, before I talk about my recommendation and the vendor, let me take a pause, or let me pause. Any questions so far on anything I've said regarding electricity?
Yeah, everybody. Sorry, just the tax, the solar tax.
Yes.
We're grandfathered in if we sign a contract. Is that for forever, or is it to the? Okay, so when does then the tax? So you're grandfathered in for how long? Until the next contract ends?
Correct.
Or,
So
okay,
you make a good point. I think the point you're making indirectly, Julianne, is, but Tom, if we lock in for a 3-year contract, we could be immune from a tax the 2nd and 3rd year.
No, that's not the point, actually.
Is that the point?
That might have been their point. My point was, so you know, what are we as a school district going to have to do then to not pay that tax in the future?
Well, the first thing that we're going to do this fiscal year is we're going to be proactive. We're going to lock into a contract in April. I'm being presumptuous. We're going to lock into a contract in April when, quite frankly, we still have a solid 2 to 3 months to go. We're going to take care of our business in fiscal year 15, fiscal year 14/15, and then we're going to go out and we're going to make this market very, very, we're going to take advantage of our competitive position in the marketplace. And we're going to get what I hope will be a very attractive rate for maybe a 12-month period or a 36-month period a year from now, which I think will offset any solar tax that may come on board next fiscal year.
But what do we have to do in order to not, do you have to pay that tax no matter what? Like if we put solar systems in place in the school district somehow, are you then exempt from that tax? Or do you pay it no matter what?
That's a great question, and the answer is no, you're not exempt from it, but there is one wrinkle, and the wrinkle is this. If we have solar panels, sidelight, at the May Finance Committee, I'm on the hook to give a request for proposal that for you to approve Finance Committee on solar panels. But the answer to your question, Julianne, is you still have to pay the tax, but it's only on the amount of electricity that you need that you don't get from your solar panels. And the initial proposal that we have, for us, would be like 70-30. For 3 buildings, we could get 70% through the solar panels. But for that 30%, and for the other 6 buildings, we'd still be purchasing electricity through the regular supply, and we'd be taxed on that. So the amount that would be taxed would be less because we'd be getting solar electricity from for other buildings.
That was my long roundabout point, was what are we planning for in order to minimize that instead of being reactionary all the time?
And what we are planning and we're going to propose is that we install solar panels at Hill Roberts, Hyman Fine, and the high school, and take care of what could be approximately 70% of our electricity through the solar panel.
Thank you.
But the drop dead, to answer your question, the drop dead date's the 25th of
No,
April.
I understand when the drop dead date is, and I understand that it's a year and after. Yeah. Thank you.
Question, Jim?
So can we go to the other question?
Yes, yes, please, let's go.
You know, if we're going to be shielded and we do a multi-year contract, how much are we being shielded from? Or I know that's a tough question. Can you estimate how much we will be shielded? Because what I want to compare is how much we'll be shielded by going multi-year as compared to how much we may save if the price goes down.
Correct. The bottom line is we can toss up two balls in the air and it's hard to say, because the bottom line is we don't have any documentation from the state indicating exactly what this solar tax is going to be. In fact, I was on the phone with one individual from Direct Energy on Friday and said, Tom, I can't talk to you about this because I'm not at liberty to talk about it, and that's okay. And I realized the reason he can't talk about it is because he doesn't know, and he doesn't want to give me bad advice. So it's hard.
Doesn't stop plenty of other people.
And so it's hard to estimate, but this is what I firmly believe. The potential increase in price that we may have to occur, that we may incur for 12 months from now, I believe will be offset by 3 different things. Number one, if we have the opportunity to go into a contract this April, which is going to shield us from an FY15 tax, who's to say that we may not have that same opportunity next fiscal year to enter into another contract by the end of April that may shield us from a fiscal year 16 solar rec tax. There's no, I guess the message I want to convey is I don't want to give the impression that every single year there's going to be a solar tax, because in all likelihood that's probably not going to happen. That's the first message. The second message is tremendous competition. Tremendous. We've got 9 buildings. We generate there's a boatload of electricity that this school department needs to run, and we're a very, very attractive customer. I think there's going to be a very competitive position we're going to have. We're going to take advantage of it. And the third item, I believe, a year from now, we may very well have 3 buildings that have solar panels, and our demand is going to be less than it is right now. Those 3 positives, I believe, will offset any potential solar rec tax that we may have in fiscal year 16 that we are exposed to 100%.
And then the follow-up question,
Sure.
I mean,
Yes.
what's our kilowatt hour usage for the year?
I'd have to check the
Wasn't sure
answers
if you
I
might
don't
have
know.
that one, all right.
But if you show up at the finance committee on Wednesday night, I promise you, thanks to Patty, I'll have that number.
And the reason I asked is because the one company that came in 7 minutes after the deadline
Yes.
had a .287 reduction compared to the next vendor. So I wanted to understand how valuable could that .287 be, and would it be worth going back out to bid? Now, I understand with our timeline of trying to get the contract in so that we're not hit by that tax, maybe we don't have time for that.
Can I answer that question?
Sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Larson. The answer to your question, Mr. Storrs, is we cannot go out to bid for 2 reasons. We put in a request. I put out a request, and the bottom line is 10 o'clock, not to play hard-nosed, but that's it. If you come in 1 minute later, you come in 1 minute later. Unfortunate, but that's the way it goes. Everyone's well aware of that requirement. And so what we could do is we could choose to throw out all the bids
That's what I'm saying.
and go out and
This committee
rebid.
has the right to do that.
But frankly, the only reason we would do that is if we thought we could get a lower price.
That's right.
That's one item. The other item is, and we thought we could get the full finance committee and the school committee to approve by the end of April. And that is something that I don't want to go down that path. I think the rates we got were pretty darn attractive, and I'm not trying to play hardball, but I will guarantee you that the vendor that came in late will be well aware of the requirement next year and will know full well, again, not to play hardball, but that in Attleboro, it's 10 o'clock, or I'm sorry, you missed the train. And I don't think that'll happen again. And I think they'll also come back with an even more competitive rate 12 months from now, because I am certain they're going to be interested in the business.
I don't think so much that it's our ability to meet. I think it's more the timetable to go through the legalities of all the rest of it in the course of 11 days.
Right.
So
I understand.
I think we're all more than happy to meet all such stuff.
Just another comment, Bill.
Sure. Yes.
Tom, I mean, we play the commodities market with gas too, and it's bitten us before. So sometimes there is, especially for budgeting purposes, there is a nice thing to have a fixed number for a certain period of time too. So I would trust you fully on this, but be careful. Like I said, we ran into it with gas a couple of years ago where they play that commodities, and it can hurt when you're trying to look for money, from April or May for something that we could have budgeted for the year when we have something that's over a 3-year contract or something. So just caution you, that's all.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Well heeded.
Okay, so Tom, what do you need from us from a motion point of view?
What I would like, thank you, Ms. Larson. What I would like is for the school committee to approve for a 12-month period, beginning July of 2014, that we stay with Direct Energy as our vendor for electricity at the rate of
10.227.
Thank you very much. For a 12-month period. That's what I would like. Please.
Okay, and I will make a motion that we enter into a 12-month contract with Direct Energy through July of 2014, starting in July of 2014 through June of 2015 for the electrical supply of the Attleboro school system at a rate of 10.227 kilowatt per hour.
Second. Cents.
Discussion.
That's cents per kilowatt.
Cents per kilowatt, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Thank you very much.
And last item, our next meeting is 7 o'clock in this room on Wednesday of this week, where we will be continuing many of the discussions that we had earlier this evening and lots of other fun things.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Our final agenda item tonight is a transition into an executive session, and pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Paragraph 3, it is the opinion of the chair that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the school committee. And therefore, I make a motion to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with union personnel in executive session. The committee will not be returning into open session. Mr. Storrs.
Yes.
Mr. Withers?
Yes.
Mrs. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Tyler?
Yes.
Mrs. Scales?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy, yes. Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Ms. Singer?
Yes.
Mrs. Zito?
Yes.
The committee is now in executive session.
Yep.